Monday, August the 14th, 2023. Please put your hand over your heart and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please be seated. Fiscal officer will take the roll.
Canton.
Here.
Kavanaugh. Here. Kawicki.
Here.
Porter.
Here.
Bell.
Here.
Krueger.
Here. We have minutes from the July 10th regular council meeting. Any changes or corrections in those minutes? Hearing none, we have a motion to approve the minutes by Canton, seconded by.
Second.
Somebody, was that you, Chris? Canton and Kavanaugh. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes passed. We have minutes from a special council meeting held on July 24th. Any changes or corrections to those minutes? Hearing none, we have a motion to approve. Moved by Kavanaugh, seconded by Canton. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes have passed. We are now at the visitors section. We have with us, and thank you, gentlemen, for giving up another night away from home. Auditor Chuck Walder and Frank Antonucci, County ADP Services. They presented to the Finance Committee. There's been a lot coming out recently. I know Governor DeWine has got something called Cyber Ohio, which I know very little about. The Township Association just had another article dealing with cyber and digital access to government services. So, you guys, your timing is perfect. Turn the floor over to you. The microphone is there just for the people who are watching. So just, it's yours. So,
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Sure.
Council. Let me just start off by saying, we talked to a number of different agencies. Chuck served as an elected official. I served as township elected official at 1.2. We've done all the state and whatever. And very rarely do we walk into a place where people are live streaming. I think that's fantastic. The auditor has had a commitment to transparency and getting out the information to public residents, which we are, just because we work in the government doesn't mean that we're not taxpayers too. I think that's super important, and I think that's just from our perspective, commending you because you've done it extremely well. That's just a great start right off the bat. That's the kind of partner that we look for, people who harness technology in a way that doesn't benefit the residents.
thank you.
I can tell you that, we recently had a special election in the state of Ohio. And of the 88 counties and the boards of elections, 28 of them on that day, after a roundtable with the Secretary of State, had hack attempts before governments during the election cycle. 2 in particular had to deal with some remediation. We're in a place where we see attacks all the time too at the county level. We saw them on election day. Having the infrastructure that we have, having the partnerships that we have, we beat that sort of thing back. We deal with it on a regular basis. You're dealing with it too. You may not always see it, but it's out there and it's becoming, as the mayor said, much more prevalent. We're seeing Chinese actors, Iranian actors, especially recently. And we have a number of powerful tools that work together. It's really the communication and the education and then the collaboration with the local governments to enlarge our area and create a bigger buying power. So in particular, we have, and this seems like a priority of yours and council as well, in terms of security and the impact of security on the township and sort of that responsibility that for residents, especially with taxpayer dollars, right? So we have a number of powerful tools that put us in a good place. And we believe right now to secure local governments in Geauga County in a way that we've never been able to do before, in terms of endpoint protection and management, in terms of outside actors when they're attempting to do government, knowing that government has money. Geauga County is affluent, South Russell Village has affluency, and then also there's ARPA money, there's CARES Act money, and these attackers know that they know it's out there. And so hardening our environment and making it more secure, but then also the sense, and I don't think people are always ready for this, that silo in the sense where we're not sort of all of our eggs are in one basket, but bifurcating what we do to ensure that we have security across the board. And I think it's been working very well. Auburn Township recently, Russell Township in the last year, they joined on the AEP, and we've done that in a way that's made them considerably more secure than what they were, and I think they're very happy with the product we have and our ability to work with them. And again, we're government. out of Lake, where we are right now. So our focus on Lake Bender, we're not here to make a buck. Our goal is to lose just a little bit of money, and we don't want to get fleeced, right? But our goal is to do the best possible product for local government and ensure that there are no circumstances to make a buck, because by the provisions of the revised code, we're not allowed to make money. And we don't want to. We want to be able to pass that power along and work with local governments, which is what we're expecting.
So to put it in perspective, the county in the last 18 months has invested a little bit more than $1.2 million in cyber protection alone. As Frank mentioned, we're doing it in multiple layers, everything from workstations all the way to our firewall access. We have what we believe are the best of breed of all products that we have put in place. We do not advertise what we deploy for obvious reasons, but we've been successful in holding back the offenders, and we anticipate they're always changing the game. We will continue to have to add to that investment. The advantage of coming under ADP is you fall under that umbrella. So you could go out and hire an IT consultant who can put those measures in place, but obviously a one-off solution is more expensive than rolling under over 1,000 users using that same technology. So we put together a couple of quotes for you. One is in order to just get your hardware and setting in place the licenses required for you to convert to ADP. And then we put together a quote for what we consider our best guess right now and ongoing costs on a yearly basis to maintain those systems. And we're happy to entertain any questions. We kind of joke in some of these sessions, people that are used to dealing with vendors are used to a la carte. For example, they'll say, I would like this brand of PC because I don't like that brand for some reason. Unfortunately, one restriction we have as ADP is it's one size fits all. We have vetted the products that we offer, and that's what we support. If a propensity of an entity is we want infinite flexibility to use any brand that we want, we are not your provider. We can't vet chipsets on every brand of PC. And the risk of that is many of the influences from overseas that are trying to do these attacks are embedded in chipsets. So if you put a camera, for example, many of these low-end Chinese-based cameras are automatically moving the data that they're looking at through the camera to a Chinese server, and it's being parsed. It's just the way it is. So we vet those chipsets through Homeland Security, as well as we work very closely with the Secretary of State. They have the highest level of security requirements, the Secretary of State does, and we model our security protocols after theirs.
We had a wonderful, at least for me, finally understanding what's going on with the Finance Committee. Questions from council about this,
Yes,
please.
the servers itself, is it housed here in Geauga County, or is it a third-party server farm like AWS?
Well, that depends. We have on-premises hosted servers in Geauga County, and then we also have off-premises hosted cloud-based servers in other locations. We have a presence in both Azure and AWS.
Okay, and there are multiple, sorry.
So the county did have a high quantity of servers in the past. We were running close to the 200 server capacity. About a year and a half ago, I made a decision that we were going to move from that environment to more cloud-based services that are secure and protected. You have to pick the cloud providers correctly, however, because you don't want to pick a foreign provider of cloud service, so you're defeating your own purpose. But we are down just over 100 servers as of today, and we are trying to squeeze that even further. There are times where you want on-prem servers, but there's more times than not that you don't want on-prem servers, just from the cost, maintenance, and security aspects.
Would our data have redundancies in different locations regionally?
Yeah, so if South Russell Village were to join with us, we do a number of different types of backups. We back up in Azure in terms of email and data storage. We back up on premises. We back up on some cold storage on premises, and then we also pay a company that provides digital backup of all of our files in 3 different locations in the US. So typically, I can use Russell as the best example. We back up their data 4 different ways in 7 different locations.
That's great. Would we have a dedicated rack or blade, or do we share it with other
We
government
would not
entities?
have anything dedicated, we would be sharing,
Okay.
which is what drives the cost down.
Makes sense. And then you're just dealing basically with the hardware and storage. Do you do any work like software patching, pushing up to our team?
Right, so we also, in terms of hardware, we would work with that to make sure the life cycles are met and everything. In terms of software, I'm glad you asked, people don't recognize that. Microsoft Azure, where it is Patch Tuesdays, where they release new patches. We patch every Wednesday on a regular basis. And then we do immediate patching when it comes up. We have two different products that do the patching for us. One is an endpoint protection product that manages the security of the products and ensures that 0 days and other things that they come up for patch. Then we have an endpoint management tool that does more of your regular patching on a weekly basis. So we patch all endpoints, we patch all servers, and this is a automated service that we have a vendor for that handles, and then we manage the vendor, we manage the patching for that. The point is, it's not dedicated to a single individual within our IT, but we have 3 or 4 people that manage the patching to make sure that it gets done. And then we also do network device patching as well.
So in the old days, you used to have a guy that ran around with the CD, and he would plug it in everybody's workstation. We don't do that anymore. This is all being pushed, it's automatically on an agent that's residing on every PC that's on your network. It then does 2 things, and not only does it services and patches, but it looks for nefarious behaving entities. And it has a priority scale. If it sees a nefarious agent is attempting to run, operate, or hook to ports or other computers, it will begin a suppression mechanism. And then it elevates that alarm to us to say, this is a low-level risk and threat. Maybe you're installing a program and it sees that activity. Maybe somebody else is running an agent and it sees that activity. So if you remember a couple of months ago in the paper, Water Resources had breached, this endpoint protection is what stopped that server from going everywhere else. It isolated it, it locked the server out from everyone else's environment, and it basically froze the engine. And then we had to, of course, tear it apart to fix it.
Sure.
But better to tear apart one device than go after 900.
That's great.
And to your point, in that case, at the time, Water Resources was illegally managing their own network. They did not have their server patched, and that became a very easy target for outside actors.
Do you guys have an uptime guarantee or anything, or no?
We've been asked that before, yeah, I don't know, it depends, right? I can tell you, we've not had any significant downtime. We've tried to silo our network and segment it in different locations, so we lose a piece, other pieces don't. I don't know.
Any uptime calculation is based on the lowest common denominator.
Yeah.
So the weakest link is gonna be your internet provider, right? Wherever your trunk is, if you don't have a redundant internet provider, if that goes down, you're down. Not locally, but you're down being able to get out. So there are certain facilities and entities that we provide redundant loops. The county is on a redundant loop, for example. I don't know if you're gonna be on the broadband trunk or you're gonna separate isolated segment. I believe you're gonna be on a separate segment. But our ring is, by definition, redundant. Because if the ring gets cut, you go the other direction around it. It just adds to latency. But it doesn't affect the actual throughput. So, it depends on the architecture. Your entity size, I don't know, would demand redundancy. You start with a price comparison. Because you have to have dual firewalls, you have to have dual access points, and know who to switch to in the event of an upset. But the county does do that.
That's great. It's good information. Thank you so much.
So Chuck, knowing what you walked into as auditor, would this have prevented that money walking out the way it?
Not, I think the embezzlement that went back 9 years was not a technology breach, but that was more due to is not having proper procedures and policies in place. The IT director was allowed to enter orders, be in New World, and track those orders and issue bills and payments. That was the flaw. That was plugged fairly quickly after I came into office by having redundancies requirement for ordering something. For example, Frank cannot order something unless some other person of the same level signs off and agrees with it. So you've got, as you all know, the chances get much less as you broaden it over more eyes. So that particular investment would not have been affected by this technology. It's a good question. As soon as you hear the IT guy is feeling regularly, think it's a technological squeeze, but it wasn't. That was pretty rudimentary. It was basic accounting principles.
A lack of check and balances. But to your point, the water resources incident where their exchange server was hacked, had they been properly in the county network at that time, doing what we had told them to do, that would not have happened. That I can tell you would not have
That was
happened.
100%.
Yeah, we would not have allowed an exchange server on the network.
Was that hosted locally?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the server was local, the hack, we believe is from either China or Russia. You can't tell anymore, they're like in tandem.
And we get IPs for proxy in different places.
Yeah, the most recent alert from the Secretary of State on election day, they called it a Chinese-Russian hack. That narrows it down, I guess, to what, 40% of the population of the world, it's kind of hard to pinpoint. And they don't really care, they look at the range of IPs that are hitting you, and they know the target zone it came from.
So in addition to the county, what municipalities are you currently serving?
Cambridge, Auburn, Russell, Chester, Hamden,
Burton Village, and then we also,
Soil and Water,
we work with a number of districts, soil and water, veterans.
Trumbull Solid Waste. Yeah, I mean, the Board of Elections, the state side of the Board of Elections, Title Bureau, the state side of the Title Bureau. So it's agencies and other municipalities.
But just Burton Village, right?
Burton Village too, right?
Just Burton Village.
That's the only municipality.
Well, let's try to say it sharp.
Yeah, thank you. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Forget it.
Yeah, we're gonna go get search tomorrow.
Where's that place we work?
Yeah.
Other questions? Cyber Ohio, is that something that the government is dealing with? Is that something you deal with, or is that?
We do. So I was invited to that as well, and I was also invited to, the lieutenant governor at a rather large AI conference in Cleveland just recently. I think government in general is becoming more attuned to the requirement of pushing technology as solutions. And I'm the first one to admit, in government, there's nothing slower than government, and usually it's a step behind. That's just the nature of the beast. I'm happy to see that there is, though, an initiative going on. I think they're still figuring out whose silo does it belong under, or does it belong under everybody's. So you're going to get influences from the auditor of state, the treasurer, the governor. Everyone's kind of doing their own thing and pushing out all this technology because it is on everyone's mind right now. And it is the great unanswered question, and we're all not IT experts. So we count on somebody else being that expert for us. But the better we raise people's educational awareness of cyber risks, the better we are just as consumers, and the better we are as government officials. From a consumer standpoint, it's, we've all become accustomed to the Amazon mentality of purchase. And we don't realize how many safeguards we have to have in place to make that transaction doable. But it is, it's actually multi-factored, and that's good. By that, I mean, you don't just log in once and then forever you're logged in, at least you should be. And that's true of government as well. You'd be shocked how many governments still want single, simple passwords under 8 characters, and I'm in for the day. If I walk away and forget, I want to time out. You just can't do that anymore. That's not responsible governance. So our job is to put those things in place to make them somewhat user-friendly, but secure. So we do that with key fobs. It'll automatically see proximity to your computer. It'll use a PIN rather than a full password, but it's passing the full password. Those are the things we can put in place to help. I don't know how small entities are doing this on the budgets they operate on. I don't see it. I was in this industry for 25 years, and it was expensive then. It's not gotten cheaper, but they're trying.
We don't hear any other questions?
Just for council's benefit, in the quote that we have in front of us, It does not include the police department. And can you explain why, Chief?
The police department is operating under CDD's IT services due to the fact that we run different software and we're on a different network completely. So we are with Sugar Valley and Valley Enforcement Group.
And that does not cause a problem for.
No, actually, you're very typical. We found, and I think I mentioned this at our meeting with the finance group.
You did.
Police departments in general are more advanced technologically than most other entities, to be honest, because they have to. Their business is that. So they're more used to, driving a cruiser up to a building and it's downloading video as you're driving in. They're used to those kind of things. So because of that, they have less benefit from doing this kind of arrangement because they're already pretty far along when it comes to technology. It's not to say we can't learn from each other, because we do. We have a handful of police departments that are under us, but we have the same number that are not. That are also, their entity is under us. And we're okay with that, as long as we don't jump on each other's network, because then the weakest link is whoever's the guy at the bottom of the total. So, in this case, I think you're more similar to, well, now Chester's changed.
Yeah, Chester's on.
Chester was the most, Russell. So Russell Fire and Russell Police are not on ADP, but everybody else is.
Are we ready to make a decision, or would you like another month to think about this? We would need a motion.
Well, Mayor, really quick, there is a contract for the agreement, so would it be a motion approving the price quote, and then we'll talk about the contract, because I have some questions regarding the contract that I would probably just reach out to the EPA. The termination provision, there's a provision regarding notices.
So we should not.
You can approve going with ADP pending, a contract that is acceptable to both parties.
So-
We'd like to hear from the solicitor before we formally approve anything.
Okay,
Does that
so
sound okay? Sure.
September the 11th is our next council meeting.
That makes sense.
Give us some time to talk and think.
Are we gonna have another finance meeting before then, Chris?
We meet Friday.
On the peripherals here, I see there are no phones, and we're not on voice over IP.
Chris, as chair of finance, is there any, compelling reason why we can't go forward with, at least to say, upon the approval of the solicitor's review of the contract, that we are going to enter the agreement?
Only the opinion of council as to whether they're comfortable to do that tonight, or they'd like more time to think about it.
Let's wait.
Okay.
Well, do we need a vote? I mean,
Well-
we've had two members express their opinions, but
Okay,
There's no motion. There's no motion. right?
no, but we can make a motion to, pending the approval of the joint agreement for data processing services, that the village accept the quotation as presented by the Geauga County Automatic Data Processing Board.
second.
It's been moved and seconded. Discussion.
I
All
don't
those
know of any reason to hurry this. I mean, we got this, last week? I know the finance is presumably recommending that we do this.
Well, not to be contentious, but, we didn't receive this last week. We've had these quotations and presentations for quite a while before us, and it's been over a month that it was discussed in the finance committee with representatives from the county. So it's not like, I don't think there's, a go-fast train here that is trying to railroad anything, but I just don't know how much deliberation is required before going forward here.
I just saw the contract last week,
That's-
and the price quote and the price list, but that doesn't mean that you all haven't seen it. That was the first time I
Just
saw it.
got it Friday.
I think I got it Friday when I.
Yeah.
We did too.
So finance has seen it, for a month or so. But the rest of council, it's not, right?
Yeah,
Until last Friday.
And the purpose, after the mayor and the members of the finance committee reviewed it at the last finance committee meeting and got the presentation from the county, the whole intent of having representatives from the county here today was that if there were any questions or concerns from council, that they could be addressed. So I would just offer, are there any questions or concerns from council which preclude us from going forward here?
Would it be correct to say that council believes that this is a service worthwhile?
Yes.
okay, I was wondering, I brought this up before, which was, we're not on a network, so why do our individual computers need to be secured this way? And in discussions with Chuck and Frank, it's clear that no matter where we go as a village, we're going to have a more robust security program for IT. So it's not a question of if we're going to spend money on this project, from my perspective, it's a question of who are we going to spend it with? And how are we going to get the biggest bang for the buck for security of our of our IT systems, say it that way.
This is a wholesale change to our computer network, right?
Well, we don't have a network.
To our system.
Yeah, but yes, for the protection of the building department, the street department, and for the administrative offices, this is a dramatic change.
And there's hardware change, as I recall.
It's required because the hardware we have is not approved under their system. There's approximately $19,500 worth of hardware requirements, and then there's an ongoing expense to be part of the system that's about $14,000 and change, which will be an annual fee.
But nobody else is gonna do it without making money besides the county. Do I have that right?
No.
Well, there may be somebody that'll do it and lose money, but they probably.
So the issue we're facing is, solicitors saw this last week. At least two or all six members saw it on Friday.
4 of 6.
4 of the 6. So we can vote now, or you can vote on September the 11th at our next council meeting. I think you're rushing it.
I think so too.
All right, let's have a roll call. Let's do a roll call on this one.
Canton,
No.
Kavanaugh,
No.
Galicki,
Aye.
Porter,
Nay.
Bell,
Nay.
Berger.
Motion defeated. September 11th is our next council meeting. I think we see it's not going to be an issue.
Yeah.
Just get that done.
There's something very involved.
All right.
I'd like to read every contract at least twice, guys.
Yeah, and just so you're aware, the agreement, there's a provision in the ORC that allows us to extend county services to non-county entities. And that is what requires an agreement being placed before we do that.
So what would a non-county,
Municipality.
oh, us, okay,
Not
just,
considered a
okay,
county
all
entity.
right, got it.
So that's 307.846. And that ORC specifies it must be through a standardized price list and it must be under agreement. So that agreement that Brady has represents the agreement we used elsewhere, not that it hasn't been altered in some form on a given issue, but in general, the crux of it is, it represents that partnership between the two entities. And it's required as well. We can't technically provide you services without an agreement.
Okay.
Anyone else have a comment before they go?
I just wanted to ask, when we met the last time, you did say, if the village which chose to go into this and they decided they didn't want it, they can get out, correct?
Yeah, so I guess that's a good point. The design of this system is intended to have very clear breakpoints, just so you know. That has not been true in the past. Prior to my becoming auditor, Bainbridge and Chester were the primary spin-offs, if you will, of ADP under these agreement terms. And they were hard connected to the county. They weren't soft connected. We are now soft connected. So you're getting the benefit of county services with an easy break. So at some point, if you say, and it's for protection on both ends, I don't know what the county will do. The ORC can change, who knows? So I have to create gaps where I can sever and you can become independent with little to no cost. That is this architecture. That we've deployed that since the Bainbridge Chester instance. We recognize that is our weakness. We don't want to marry you for life. We want to marry you under a partnership as long as we're both happy with the
In love.
In love, right. Because things change. You know what they do. I'm not going to be auditor forever. Frank won't be at ADB forever. And directions may change. And you need to have severability. And you need to do so without huge cost. So we designed that into the system.
Before you go, fiscal officer and police chief deserve to be publicly recognized for what they've done to bring us along to this point. It was unbelievable what they've done behind the scenes, and they've kept us out of trouble. Knock on wood. So thank you to you both for what you've done to get us here. Thank you, guys.
Okay, thank you.
Good night.
Thank you very
much. Chris, you want to do the? Okay, we have a forfeiture hearing. Solicitor, remind us what we're supposed to do. I just handed it off to Chris Weber, Finance, but this also involves building. Tell us what we need to do.
Sure.
They need to read through it. Do they need to?
Do we have a general idea of exactly what it is or
I think they're
cost of
looking
the
at it
property?
right now, yeah.
And then I'm assuming we do not have, obviously the property owner's not here to discuss.
Okay, it sounds to me like the property owner put up $1,000. The contractor didn't do the job. Property owner paid the contractor $95,000 or some crazy number. And the contractor skipped out on the job
Oh.
because our building inspector determined that the work was lousy, way beyond the scope of the permit hold, and it's the property owner who's asking for the money
Okay,
to be sent to her rather than to the contractor.
okay.
And presuming that what is said in the letter she wrote is accurate, and I don't have any reason to think it isn't, I think she should get $1,000 rather than forfeit it to the village.
It appears in notes from the building department that says that the 30-day notices and 10-day notices were sent, and there was no response from the contractor, so that holds up to the letter we received.
Do we know how many inspections Dave has done? Do we know if if the property owner, right, it's Ms. Sinclair, right? Because this one, I think also, there's also an issue with the bond, if I'm not mistaken. That has nothing to do with this, that they're going after. But my question is, do you know if there are efforts being made to try to correct whatever damage has been done as far as inspections and getting it to code or whatever needs to be done for permits?
She only said she fired the contractor, so I presume she's hiring somebody else, and that the building commissioner will have to, inspector rather, will have to be by to check the work again. And it may be that this will be like double inspections, which we've seen before.
Okay,
But if the work is as atrocious as the letter indicates, we may not be inclined to waive the additional inspection fees because the originals were not in depth.
and no, I have, you guys can do anything. You can refund the whole amount. You can say none of it's gonna go back to the property owner. You can do a portion and keep a portion for administrative costs. So,
So does the building committee have a recommendation on this? Chris or Chris?
Chris, or
Oh,
Jerry.
Jerry.
Just coming at you too quick. Want to put it off a month?
I'd say the homeowner should get the money,
Yeah,
the full amount.
I tend to agree. With the notes from Ruth and building, I feel better about it, so
So you want to make a
I'd
motion?
like to make a motion.
Do we put her name in
Or
this
you-
motion?
you could do a property address if you have
I'll
that.
do that. I'd like to make a motion to refund the construction deposit for 1101 Bell Road in the amount of $1,000.
It's been moved and seconded. Discussion. This house is at 1101. It's, when you look at it, it looks modern, but it's an older house. It's a mess.
Is that the one-
Marketed right on the head, 95,000.
Is that the one that they put the fence in the front yard there?
No, this is,
It's Frank Book's old house.
it shares a driveway. It was Dave York's old house. They have a shared driveway. It sits up in front of Kearney. It has woods to its left. It's been added on to about 3 times.
Oh, it's currently undergoing.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's kind of
and there's a
stopped, yeah.
board in the window, and something needs to be done before winter to get that
Well,
remedied.
you're thinking, you're on the south side.
No,
Okay.
no, this is the house that's how we got the Gurney property. That's the
Yes.
people that live there.
Yeah, it's a mess.
I know they've been doing roofing and siding work there, at least.
All right, it's been moved.
Demolition.
Any other discussion? Moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Should be receiving $1,000. Okay, we're at the mayor's report, and it's gonna be a long one. You have a letter in there, it came from Jim Dvorak, the One Foundation, One Ohio Foundation. They would like Scott Hildebrand to serve as a representative from the county. So can we have a motion to approve that?
Are we doing a resolution support or?
No, we just want to approve that Scott's going to be our representative.
I'll move.
Moved by Kavanaugh, seconded by,
I'll second.
He's the representative for the village?
he'd be the representative, he's going to be the representative for the incorporated parts of the village.
Oh, I get it, yeah, okay. And it's not just us.
No, it's everyone. It's been moved and seconded.
Who
Any-
seconded it?
Kavanaugh. Pardon me, Campbell. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion passes. This is this is different than the national opioid settlement, because I see we're getting like $616 from them. That's coming also. Okay, we're gonna be ordering 5 Eagle Scout plaques. Somehow we forgot to start ordering those, so we've had scouts coming in, they're gonna have those done, going back to when Charlie Simperman was here in the bat houses. Had a meeting with Chagrin River Watershed Partners, trying to follow up on the meeting with David Joyce, trying to figure out how we can get something going with Bainbridge, Chagrin, and Russell. This also came up in public utilities because of the flooding and the sewer issues that we've had. It's an ongoing discussion as to what we're gonna do. Walk the Country Estates Pond number 4. It has a .05 elevation. Eric, turn that into inches or feet.
Can you repeat, you said
It's 0.05% grade.
No. What exactly are you asking?
The impression I had from Carmelo was that
0.05% slope
slow,
is
yeah, flowing,
very flat. That's
yes,
exceedingly flat.
that's what I wanted to hear, yeah.
Okay, generally for a pipe, for an enclosed drainage pipe, the bigger the pipe you need, the less slope that's required, because you have a higher volume of water kind of pushing through. For example, the minimum grade on a 6-inch pipe is 1%. For an open channel, you really want to shoot for a minimum grade of 2%. For water to efficiently travel in an open channel. If you've got a slope of 0.05%, for all intents and purposes, that's flat. It would still work, but water needs to kind of pile up to push it through rather than it being a free flowing.
And that's the issue of the country estates and the preserve of Chagrin have. The water's supposed to flow north into Russell Township, into the Madru Park, and it's gonna be difficult to keep that water going. Thanks to Carmela, who walked it and took us through that. So they're still gonna have an issue. Coming up in September, we need to talk about Wreaths Across America. We have 15 veterans and how we want to handle that program, or if at all. Bruce
You
Hennis,
put something in the newsletter, didn't you, Mayor, or the upcoming newsletter about Reads Across America?
no, I didn't get it in.
Oh.
But I will.
I don't think
Um,
we can to give donations.
As to how we want to do that. Bruce Hennis did his communication exercise. I know Dennis and Ruth and Chris and I heard him a couple of years ago. He is still fantastic on how to get out of trouble once you're in it, basically in communications. Eric frankly hit a couple of home runs last Thursday afternoon dealing with the Ohio EPA, and he'll talk about that and our MS4 report that we do every year. It was just a great day, and he came away with $26,000 too, so nice job. The Whitetail Master, Chief and I went to the Whitetail Master. The issue, I think, I don't want to take your thunder, speed and water. It was right after the big storm on July 25th. They have water issues like everybody had, and also talked about speeding. He's going to have some ideas there. Judy Harvey's Garden Club has gotten so much publicity that it was featured. They had a tour, a Greater Cleveland Garden Club, Shaker, South Euclid, and a few other people came to tour her, to see her garden. And very impressive what, they liked our park and they saw what we had there. NOACA is having a meeting next Tuesday dealing with their community engagement. It's right over the Family Life Center. Should be a good event. Ruth is going to be coming up. This is something of first on shutting down the park for middle school cross-country meets. That'll be coming up. So just start thinking about that. The issue is going to come up in a minute. County Fair, since we are members of the Ohio Township, the Geauga County Township Association, we've been asked if we want to have some publicity at the township tent. Of course, they also want us to come and sit there for hours on end at the township tent. But what we probably will do is some of the stuff, maybe your 8-page handout would be perfect for the Geauga County Fair. I'm meeting with the gentleman who's proposed, we take a look at the business area on East Washington about sidewalks. I don't know if anything's going to come about it, but it's been officially brought out there and saying, hey, why don't you guys think about this? The new group that we joined, the Northeast Ohio City Council Association, has their quarterly forum on council leadership. That's coming up on 14th. Hopefully you've got that also. There's an event next Tuesday, August 21st. It may not be Tuesday, it's a Monday. It's called Solar for All. It's being put out by the governor. It's from 10 to 11:30. We've been looking and need to connect with one of the companies that have provided a proposal already for solar. At the last Health District Advisory Committee meeting, it was mentioned that Ohio, out of the 50 states, we're 45th from the top in providing funding per person for public health. The average Ohio county receives $5 per person for public health. Since Geauga County is rather wealthy, we receive 39 cents. So that's something they're looking into. I don't see any changes coming about that. Couple things are going to be in the newsletter. I described them as just not being nice neighbors. The idea of burning, people that burn, and it's not like they're having hot dogs. When they burn and the smell permeates all the houses. So I put a comment in the newsletter about that. Same comment about keeping your property up. Some of the people, we got a couple people that the property looks awful, and we've been going after them. We went to court, and we'll be going back again. And that's it. Questions of the mayor. Moving on to the fiscal officer.
I distributed my report to mayor and council. I don't know if there are any questions.
Yes, food. About halfway down in your report,
Yep.
they're getting concerned about food.
The auditors, they just well, if you remember, not our last audit, the audit before that, we got dinged on purchasing food. So we extended the list of approved events through legislation, but they just noted that we're doing more and more events of food and questioning proper public purpose. So if we just be mindful of that.
So we can continue doing it? Or,
So
With
how-
a proper public purpose.
Yeah, so how do you define that?
We have it, I think, defined in the legislation.
Mhm.
Of course, I don't have it in front of me,
fall festival, cake and ice cream, I mean, it's,
but I think we actually have like a sentence in there as to
A list.
kind of how we determine public purpose.
so,
Well, I hope public purpose is gonna be on September 14th, when I've already sent out invitations to old people that hail from here, and they're expecting to be fed.
Well, so is that the proposed luncheon, is that?
Yeah,
So, I mean, I think that what we've done in the past, if it's actually not listed, I know we have a catch-all for other village-sponsored activities, but we actually make a motion where we kind of find that it is a public purpose for that specific event.
Okay.
For the expenditure of food and drinks.
so like, we did cake and ice cream for the birthday party, I don't think we did a motion for that as such.
We have village-sponsored activities. And I think you're, wait, we'd have to go back, because there, if you recall, there was a list of events.
Yeah, I can't remember them all either. All right,
We have the list, and then since then we had the veterans, and then we did the park thing, and now we're doing the other, you know what I mean? And they're like, we're doing more of it. Does it have to involve food, or can you have the event without spending?
so it just seems
money?
ridiculous. There must be other places that abuse this, and
Absolutely.
I'd like to be fed as
And
I
we
walk
did
into
get
the
down that
meeting.
once
but-
before, so.
Yeah, right.
we used to
just-
have steak fries before council meetings with steak fries, just kidding.
Okay,
Those
so we
are-
have-
keep going.
just want to remind everybody the OML conference is October 18th to the 20th, and I have 2 council members who want to be signed up. Registration opened today, so if anybody else wants to do that,
I'm going.
information went out in the OML, so if you want to go, let us know, we can get you signed up.
Okay.
Then today I added before you an amendment to the appropriation. We need to amend, the chief can help explain this one, $50,000 for a cruiser, because we're going to have to order next year's cruiser this year. He'll explain that in a second. And then we have to do a transfer from the income tax fund to the culvert, so there's an amendment and a transfer for that. And then there's another bills list in front of you today for the bills to be paid dated today. So that those were just added late this afternoon.
Other questions of a fiscal officer?
And Hill, just an observation, looks like our income tax receipts are tracking. before.
They're doing this afternoon, I was going through the bank statement, and we got this month's, and it's down 40,000. So it fluctuates, you can never fully count on it, you know what I mean? So we were much higher before, now we're, I think, 115,000 over last year at this point, given what we got today.
I mean, at this point, at the end of July, this is the most money we've had on hand since 2019. At this
Well, in income
point in
tax
the year,
money.
Yeah, income taxes. And I imagine the property taxes will be as much or.
Property taxes are pretty steady, they're pretty flat, and we get them in July. So after this point in the year, this is when we're not really gonna get anything else besides income tax money. So this is when our cash balances will start decreasing.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Finance Committee, you're up.
Thank you, Mayor. Okay, so, Finance Committee has meeting minutes, regarding ADP. We will meet this Friday, the 18th at 9 a.m. Okay, so at this point, I'd like to make a motion to acknowledge receipt and review of the credit card report.
Second.
Moved and seconded, discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion passes.
Mayor, motion to acknowledge receipt and review of the July 2023 financials in your packet.
Second.
Moved and seconded, discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion passes.
Okay. Then, are we gonna, so for the police cruiser, are we gonna do that as part of ordinances?
Yes.
Okay. Then, subject to questions or comments from Councilman Zalicki, that concludes the report.
Hearing none, solicitor.
Just one thing to report, so at the last council meeting, we talked about the state budget bill, which is House Bill 33, which passed in July. Some of the appropriation measures are going into immediate effect, other measures are going into effect in October. But I think at that meeting, we mentioned that municipalities were actually left out inadvertently of the $75,000 threshold bidding increase, and that is accurate. They have been inadvertently left out. And so they're going to change that when they come back into session. I think September, October, to try. But as of right now, our bidding threshold is $50,000. Counties, townships, villages with administrators, regional sewer districts, all kinds of other entities have a $75,000 bidding threshold. And also, just so you know, each year after, it goes up another 3%. And we just are not there yet. So just wanted to keep that in mind.
Questions of our solicitor?
Really quickly, last meeting, we had a presentation from former Sergeant Kimball's attorney. Will you have an update tonight in the executive session? or-
I can update right now. I've not heard anything back from the email that I sent to the attorney.
Engineer, floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll address the item that's on the agenda first and then provide council with a brief update on all of our active projects. The MS4 status update, every year the village is required through the Ohio EPA to submit an annual MS4 stormwater report. The report has historically been handled by CT and it's always come off without a hitch. It's submitted, the EPA reviews and accepts it, and we move on. We had a retirement and some staff changes, and I was embarrassed to say that we missed the 2022 report deadline by a mile. Pulled together, got the report submitted, and once again, for the 2023 report, we have missed the deadline. So in an effort to provide the village with the level of service that you come to expect and rely upon, I'm shifting the responsibility of submitting report and gathering information to Chagrin River Watershed Partners for pending council approval. I've met twice now with Chagrin River Watershed Partners. They do the annual reporting for other municipal agencies. They could probably do it as well as CT can do it, if not better. Their scope of services is up for renewal, I think, in a couple of months. And I've asked Kim Brewster Shackleton, Chagrin River Watershed Partners, to put a provision in that renewal for completing the annual MS4 report. Obviously, I'll work with Chagrin River Watershed Partners and our building department, streets department to provide the information that we provide every year to complete that report. But it doesn't seem like CT is cutting it with our new staff that was meant to come in to replace Mary Jo, who unfortunately retired. So I'm looking at other options for the village, just to make sure that we are in compliance and on time, importantly, with EPA report submitting.
Eric, are we liable for any financial penalties as a result of the late reports?
No, not yet, but if we keep.
What do you mean, not yet? Oh, good.
I'm pushing as hard as I can on the staff I have available to just get the report submitted and approved. It should be within the next couple of weeks. So
When was it due?
it was due in, I believe, March, but we filed an extension
Till when?
till the end of July. It was the end of July, we filed a formal extension, and once again missed it, I was 55. So we're looking to make provisions so that doesn't happen on future reports.
And I assume they accepted the 2022
They
report?
did,
Okay.
they did. And I'm confident they'll accept the 2023 report once we get it into their hands. That's been the issue, and I'm looking to avoid that issue going forward in the future for the village.
I think I remember seeing these in the past, and it was basically a handwritten public education, this and that. This is how many permits we have, I'm sure it's computerized by now.
Yes, they've made a couple of changes, under the auspices of making it easier to complete, and that hasn't really been the case. It's just as onerous as it was before, but instead of writing the report, now you have to fill in text fields in a PDF document. And it's a little cumbersome, but everything with state government is cumbersome, so. But that's not an excuse to miss the reporting deadline. It's not an excuse.
When will we know if the Watershed Partners is taking this over?
They have tentatively agreed to do it. Again, that's a call that's made by council. I can't solicit Chagrin River Watershed Partners as the engineer to do this. But I would like for CT to step back as the lead point of contact with the Ohio EPA for the annual municipal report, and have Chagrin River Watershed Partners step forward. That would be my recommendation as your engineer, since I'm apparently unable to get my people to turn it in the proper and timely.
Give those people a cheat sheet. This date, this date, this date.
It's been done.
So you need a motion for us to,
I don't need a motion for anything tonight. When the Chagrin River Watershed Partners submits to council for review and approval their annual contract, that we can address it then.
in the meantime, the report will be prepared?
They're working on it now. It'll be prepared and submitted, and hopefully this will be the last time that it is turned in late.
But council would have to approve that before it gets submitted?
No.
Just gets submitted.
It just gets submitted.
Okay, any questions on that?
I
Go ahead.
question. Concerning the Manor Brook project,
Yes,
there are trees to plant still?
the village has trees to plant, it's not part of the Manor Brook project. The village agreed to plant some trees.
We're gonna plant those trees in the fall.
Presumably, that would be the best time.
And we know how many trees we're gonna plant and what type of trees we're gonna plant.
Yeah, we did all that.
Yeah, it's all good. It's
I
all
saw
agreed
the
upon.
plan that was submitted to planning commission.
I just wanted to bring it up because we're getting close to fall.
Mhm.
And I would like to recommend once again, I appreciate it, and I'll make it a suggestion that the people who live, whose backyards are facing 306, that they be told when the trees were going to be planted. Out of courtesy,
That they be told?
they'd be told what date the trees will be.
So if it's the villages, who does that? Does Tim do that? Who does that?
Well,
think we're
this is
gonna
coming
hire-
up with streets committee and the planning commission, as I recall. And it was like 3 trees and the notch and like 12 somewhere else.
Something like that. There was, I think, a total of 15, if I'm not mistaken.
And the recommendation was a certain type of tree, and the village was going to buy them in the fall and plant them, right?
Very good. Very good. I just wanted to bring it up again.
So thank you for not letting us all as a group forget that. And the reason why we were waiting on planting the trees is it could not be incorporated into the 319 grant portion, the 319 grant project, which comprised the Manor Brook Stream restoration. It was an ineligible item, and it was decided that it would be cleaner to wait until work was done there and then come in and plant the trees as a completely separate purchase order.
And as you're aware, people who live there are very concerned about where those trees are planted. And that's why I suggested it would be proper to let them know when they would be planted, so they could maybe be a part of it.
I would suggest maybe you stop and see them. Things have changed so much for the better over there that I don't know that they really feel the need. We committed to it, but I don't know that there is a need for these trees. When we walked with the Ohio EPA, we stood on that hill and we looked, and it's like, you putting trees in here for that place that's a quarter of a mile away? So,
Well,
I know we committed.
we agreed to it. That might be the situation, but out of courtesy to our neighbors and our constituents, I think it might be best to move forward with it.
Okay.
That could be a newsletter item too, I think.
The newsletter's ready to go tomorrow.
Well, I mean,
For the next one.
Got an excellent company.
Bee blast.
you can do
Blast on the
that, but
website.
what I'm getting at is, not this newsletter, the follow-on would have a picture or two of the trees that were planted before Manor Brook.
It'd be okay before and after.
Sure.
Before and after.
Other things, Eric.
Project updates, just some numbers, and Danielle, these are all preliminary, don't write these down, because they won't be accurate to the penny. I just wanna give you a good idea of like where we're headed. The last remaining work item for the Chillicothe culvert replacement project was completed by grade line, I think, 2 weeks ago, was it 2 weeks ago or 3 now? I think it was just last week. Okay. That it was the inlet control structure that the village advised they would like to see installed at the Shearbrook culvert, the culvert that crosses Chillicothe at Shearbrook.
So by another name, the restrictor plate.
Yes, but it's a lot more robust than that. That was installed by Grade Line, and we're working on closeout documents with them. We are gonna pull that project in. The awarded amount was almost $148,000. And I'm at $141,600. So we're about $6,000, give or take, under the awarded contract to come out. So even with the extra work that we did with some additional piping at the Belgrade 6 intersection and the inlet control structure, some of the pavement repair items were less than I had marked out. They kept a tighter work area and did a little bit neater of a job than your standard contractor. So I was able to save some money that way. We're about $6,000. We're coming in around $6,000 under the awarded contract value, and I think that's a job well done to the contractor. We look forward to having Grade Line work on village projects in the future. I think they did a really good job. The signalization project is well underway. In talking with Param, they're still looking at having the project completed by the end of September. Our official drop dead completion date for our funding is December 31st, 2023, so we'll be well within that envelope. So far, the only additional cost, the awarded contract value was $238,000 and change. The only additional cost I'm seeing so far is when we got that easement from Dry Insurance to move the pole back because there was the gas main conflict, we had to upsize the foundation and get a longer arm for the pole to keep this to, number one, upsize the foundation to cantilever it and keep it for tipping over, and number two, a longer mast arm to keep that signal head aligned over the driving lane. It resulted in a pretty minimal cost of I think we're at $1,800 for everything. I don't have a final extra cost on that yet, but I think it's gonna come out around $1,800. I don't foresee any additional out of scope work items on that project, so I think we're gonna track real close to the awarded contract value on that as well. Our road program, at long last, I got some updates from Specialized, our contractor for that. We're looking to, as you know, we've got Woodside and Maple Springs, the recycling operation has been complete and it's been curing for weeks now. We're scheduled, I don't have a final schedule, but they said sometime this week, we'll do a proof roll, which involves taking a 60,000 pound tandem dump, driving it at walking speed down the road. I walk behind it and look for any signs of deflection or base failure, mark it out with spray paint, and those are our base repair quantities. I think we're gonna be under our base repair quantities just by experience and just looking and driving on those roads. I think we've got right now about $37,000 of money left. I think we're gonna have left in the road program contract. Tim and I have gone around and looked at ways, the areas where we could best spend that. And we're looking at concrete, curb and gutter. There's several spots in Kensington. There's a couple inlet basins that need to be adjusted. And we're looking at doing some bigger mill and fill areas. One's on Countryside, one's on Lakeview, and another's on the Kensington outbound main. I don't have prices from Specialized on those extra work items yet, but I think we're gonna be able to complete everything that was on our wish list with the money we have, with the surplus that I believe we're going to have in the road program. Now, all of that's tentative right now because the proof roll will be, that's the proof is in the pudding when we mark out the base repairs, and then I'll know exactly how much to the penny I've got to spend on additional work items. But I think we're gonna be able to complete the vast majority of our wish list, so that's good news. And that's, barring any questions, that's what I've got for our project updates for our active projects.
Questions of our engineer? The new wetlands and the 26,000, you want to talk about those?
Sure. As council recalls, when we built the central retention basin, which is functioning as intended, a section of our pilot 319 grant program was impacted by that work. The village agreed to restore that area to pre-construction condition. But after looking at it, both independently and with the Ohio EPA, it was determined that, boy, it'd be really tough to put that back how it was, given the grade differential that's there now, to allow the central retention basin to work properly. So what we're looking at doing is basically mitigating that square footage that was disturbed to an area behind the pavilion in the park that is currently unmowable and wet. It already is a wetland area. We'll just designate it as such and treat it for invasives and just kind of let it do its natural thing. A real minimal cost is going to be associated with that work just because it doesn't need any heavy excavation and any big plantings. It already is a wetland area, so we'll just leave it be and say that's our mitigation.
So you can do that? You can just trade?
The EPA was amenable to that.
Are we gonna get this back in writing from the EPA?
Yes, yeah, we'll have a formal amended contract. But the mayor and I and Chagrin River Watershed Partners met via Microsoft Teams meeting with the EPA last week, and it's a recorded meeting, and they were very amenable to that solution. Also, there is, when the EPA came through and did their kind of walkthrough and evaluation of all things 319 grant related, they looked at the performance of the Manor Brook Stream Restoration Project, and their performance metrics are a little different than what I would evaluate evaluate as far as performance metrics. Mine are more quantitative. How much stormwater are we able to capture, slow down and really slowly? In my estimation currently, that project is doing a fantastic job of allowing the water to spread out. It floods itself out during a big rain event and stores it short term and slowly releases it downstream. I've seen no ill effects downstream as a result of that project. On the contrary, it's helped to buffer the flows downstream and through Fox Run quite a bit. So I couldn't be more happy with how that turned out. However, the EPA, when they look at things that are qualitative, like habitat and speciation diversity, things like that. They said, well, you got two ditches, the two ditches that came from the condominium areas of Manor Brook / Whitetail that empty into that restored stream. And they said, there's some erosion and cutting happening due to the velocity and quantity of water that's coming in. Can you put some more armoring and create a little more habitat on those two streams? And I was really hesitant to agree to that because it would cost more money. And it's beyond the scope of our initial project that they approved. So what they came back with at our meeting last week was, well, there's still some 319 grant money available at an 80-20 match. The EPA has not closed out that project, so we could capitalize on that $24,000 or $25,000 of available EPA grant money that they would allow us to tap into to complete that work. And I think, yeah, that's a good deal for everyone. So there's not going to be much of any cost associated with that.
So how do you do erosion control when it's almost flat?
Ruth, how I would address it and how the EPA wants to address it are two different things. But we're going to make it so it's how they like it. What you do is if you look in the Manor Brook, in the main Manor Brook stream channel, there's some like rock and log structures that are placed in there to kind of create what's called a micro pool effect. And any water velocity that's coming through, or any like large volume of water that's coming through at a higher velocity hits those structures and it kind of dissipates. It causes a ripple, it loses a lot of its energy, and then goes on down the stream, gaining energy until it hits another one of those things, and it kind of dissipates all the energy.
It's a mill run. We're going to get a sled and go down it. No, I'm sorry.
So we're looking at installing probably two each, I think, on each of the intersecting ditches that are coming in, and I think that's going to satisfy the EPA's performance evaluation, and it's going to provide more habitat and take the energy out.
And we pay 20% of that.
And we'll pay 20%.
Okay.
So can I ask, will this be another grant that we apply for?
No, it's the continuation of, it'll just be we're just gonna create basically a change order or an adjusted scope document for the Manor Brook 319 project and say, we're adding this work and we're getting more grant money for it.
Great.
Okay. It's a good day. Questions of our engineer? Hearing none, Chief, I think you deserve a pat on the back for getting us out of signal service into Farin. I stood around there like a little kid and watched them put that mast up today. Unbelievable how they do that and don't get hurt.
Yeah, they're doing a great job. We have not had any complaints from the public on, right-of-way issues or traffic flow. They've been in the berm most of the time with their cranes, and they've done an outstanding job. In talking with them today, they did give me more of a recent update. They said that they will be done with all of the structure by next week. And then the rest of it is going to be scheduling the vendor to come out to program radar heads.
Hardware, software.
Yep, and then First Energy to make the connection. The last thing is when they're done energizing that traffic light, they're going to dismantle the old one. They're gonna store it over here on village property for us to assess, and if council wishes, to put that on gov deal so that we can recover some money back.
That's,
So who would buy it?
Someone that wants to put a garage.
Yeah. So, yeah, we, there should be some good value in
Okay.
another entity.
Street Commissioner, you're up.
Thank you, Mayor. I submitted my monthly report for July. Additionally, in my countless attempt to reduce our metering costs for electricity, I spoke to the gentleman at Perrin about running a line through the pipe that they pulled underneath Chillicothe Road to supply power to the corner lot. I talked to Dave Hostbar. Is it possible that we use a large enough wire to go across the road for right now, and then in the future, have enough capacity to take it down to the cemetery on that side of the road? And he thought it was, if we did like a number 6 wire, unfortunately, it'd be like $2,000 for the wire. I didn't get prices yet, but that's what he estimated it at. So I'd like to go ahead and look into that a little farther. I brought it up at Streets Committee and they seemed all for it. So we would have to run have a directional boring company run a line from their pulling pit to the service garage. And then we would bring the wire, one piece from the service garage fuse panel all the way to the corner lot fuse panel.
So that when the house is down, you have, I'm lost.
It would be, the meter that powers the light on the flagpole and our holiday lighting
Okay,
is $98 a month, every month,
right.
just for that. And it's $2 or $3 to $7 of electricity in the wintertime. And it's just not very economical.
Okay, so it's, it would
So you would
change.
be eliminating that meter.
And when you said cemetery, you mean the old
We would
cemetery?
go from that pulling box to the new one.
To the new one, okay.
Yeah,
And
to
we
power
have
that.
potentially another meter
And that would knock
$98 a month.
$200 off. per
Got it.
month.
Yeah, we talked about that.
I mean, we're still gonna get the electric charge, 98 times 2, 186.
Unfortunately, the pump that's at the cemetery is a 220 pump, so we'd have to run some pretty good sized wire that far. And I still have to check with the well company if a number 6 wire can carry 220 that far. So I have to measure that and give them a call, and they're gonna come out and test the water from the house before demolition anyway, so maybe we would do that at the same time.
Where would they pull that power from? What
We would take it from the service garage, right from the main panel, 50 amp, right?
Questions of our Street Commissioner? Street Committee, you're up.
Street Committee, all right, we have a few things here. We have talked previously, formally, about a Bureau of Workers' Comp grant that Tim went out and researched and found as a result of one of the educational seminars you went to, is that
Yes.
correct? With that, there was an Ohio BWC grant that would give us a 3-to-1 match for some equipment that would make the job safer for our employees, fewer back strains, whatever. As a result, Tim did put the paperwork out there and applied, and they approved us for the 3-to-1 match for a mud buggy and a concrete mixer, Tim?
Yes, correct.
The village's portion would be $9,718.62. The BWC would be paying $19,433.27 towards the procurement of that equipment. If we are to move forward, we do need to do 2 things. One, and thank you, fiscal officer, for guiding me through this earlier today. One, council would have to approve applying for the BWC grant to begin with for that equipment. And 2, we would have to have a motion to agree to the purchase of that equipment with the total cost and how much the BWC is covering and how much we're covering.
Is that a reimbursement grant?
Tim said we're getting the money ahead of time, so I said we could wait to order it, because he didn't have anything urgent he needed the equipment for, so once we get the grant money, there is enough money in the budget in the special equipment from when things got messed up at the beginning of the year with the loader, so we wouldn't have to amend the appropriations for it, you guys would just really have to ratify applying for it, and then agreeing to purchase the equipment. And then once we get the money, then he will order it.
So just for clarification, we still have to apply for this grant? But didn't I just hear that
You did hear both.
they approved the grant that
That's
we
correct.
didn't apply for?
That is
It was
absolutely-
applied for, so you would really be ratifying the approval.
It was already applied for.
Okay,
We are ratifying.
okay.
But I do have a question. Is there a grant agreement that has been provided for when they awarded the grant? Is there an agreement that the village has to review and sign off on?
I didn't see one. I could inquire.
Yeah, I mean, normally there is.
Normally there is.
So actually it would be a three-step process because we would also need to approve the grant agreement at some point.
But they must have emailed you, called you and said you're approved
Yes.
somehow.
So is this motion premature? No, we need to ratify the BWC application, and we need to ratify the village portion and BWC portion, because that's how the financing is going to work. But the buggy and the cement mixer will be useful at the cemetery and in a variety of other places, as I recall, Tim, right? Right. So you guys aren't scooping out cement with shovels. They can move it directional and pour it.
And the gravel and the piping that's gonna be put in at the park is also gonna be used for the boat.
You want to do the first?
Into this solicitor's point, the reason is she needs to see if we have the agreement, because let's face it, they don't give you grant money for free. So what's tied to it? Just like we had this problem over here with the headwater thing, and now there's an issue. Or CVD got money for their big swap vehicle, so they didn't voluntarily go to Florida to help after those storms. It was part of the grant money. So that's why we need to know what are the strings to the money.
So would it behoove us to simply do step one this evening, approving the application for the grant, and then the solicitor can review the council grant application, sorry, what do you call it, the grant agreement?
Yes.
And then after she approves that, we move forward on the 11th for the funds.
Sure.
I think that would make sense.
Okay,
Is that gonna slow you down on the order?
No,
Okay,
so we can't, we won't do anything until we have the money.
all right, so we'll start with just step one tonight. I'd like to make a motion to apply for the Bureau of Workers' Comp grant for a cement mixer and a mud buggy.
This is the ratification.
Yeah, I think it would to ratify the application that was applied for
Yes.
to the BWC.
Okay, I'd like to rescind my motion.
Just amended.
Amendment.
I'd like to amend my motion that we are approving,
Ratify.
ratifying the, this is crazy. Ratifying the grant application that was made to the Bureau of Workers' Comp.
Second.
discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion passes.
Okay, we'll talk next month after you review the agreement, and we'll go from there. Secondly, we have talked in the past about some stream cleaning / trenching needs to be done down around Woodside. I believe it's caused some stormwater issues down there, am I correct, Tim?
Yes.
Tim has received a quote from R&B Trenching for $7,000. It would take 4 days to complete. 5 residents have have signed the waiver, so the work can be approved or can be moved forward. There is money in the budget for this already, so there would not be a budget amendment, is that correct?
There's enough money in stormwater, so.
Enough money in stormwater.
Is this in like a ditch? It's a ditch?
It's cleaning it out.
Yeah, it's like
Okay.
a drainage channel that's shared by a whole lot of
Okay.
different properties.
Does this require a competitive bid?
Now it's well below the threshold.
Solicitor, were you the one who prepared the waivers or oversaw that?
Yes, you.
I have prepared, yes, so I would assume,
And they're acceptable?
yes.
Okay, so we have a motion, we have a second.
Let me formally make the motion. Motion to approve the stream cleaning / trenching on Woodside Road at a cost not to exceed $7,000.
Should we identify the contract?
R&B Trenching, not to exceed $7,000.
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion passes.
Our next meeting will be September 1st at 7:30 a.m. in the street commissioner's office. Any notes from Councilman
Vote
Porter?
on that, do we want to do that the Friday of Labor Day weekend?
Is that Friday, Labor Day weekend?
I'm fine with that if everybody else is.
No,
I'm
let's
okay
take
with
some time off.
Then you're okay with that as well, engineer?
Yeah, fine. I'm putting it in my calendar right now.
If I'm not there, I'll have the representative be there. That's sufficient.
Okay, we are now at the building committee.
Building committee.
The Chris Bell personality comes out.
It is kind of a lot going two in a row. Building committee met on August 3rd. The minutes have been given to you. One thing I brought up last meeting, is that the zoning and building inspector asked for a different pay structure. There was some confusion there. He was not 100% sure that he was actually an employee of the village. So I confirmed that for him. He is an employee of the village. He is asking for, instead of $40 per hour, $60 per inspection to be what he feels is more in line with the market rate, which is generally $75 to $100 per inspection. After confirming with him, as I said I would, that he is actually an employee of the village, if he'd like to move forward with said proposal, he would have to provide a proposal through he has an LLC, to move forward $60 per inspection, and he would have to resign his position with the village, because there's no way we could pay a village employee $60 per inspection. I think he's looking for a similar structure as Dave Hosevar as far as per inspection. I believe, Mr. Mayor, your thought was that he could serve more as a backup to the building inspections themselves, as opposed to just zoning.
Yes, I think it's much better for us to let Ruth and Dave handle the zoning part and have Dan just come in like next week. Dave's going to be gone. We need Dan to do inspections.
So Chris, is he recommending this new rate for zoning inspections or building inspections?
I asked him that in a follow-up, and I have not received a response yet. He was insinuating it was for building inspections, but I asked him to clarify if this is for zoning inspections as well, or if he would like a different structure for that. When I learn that, I will let you know.
Yeah, thanks, because it would seem like it would not be a good deal for the village
For zoning inspections.
zoning.
Correct. So we'll see what comes of it. There was definitely some fuzziness where I didn't understand until we met over there. I thought he was asking as an employee. He didn't think he was an employee. I'm glad we clarified all that together as a group. But we'll see what he comes back with.
Thanks.
The issue that we have is he's going to be needed next week. So I think what we should look at is maybe next Monday morning, have a council meeting. Are we ready to?
I mean, why would we have to do that? I thought that he was supposed to be the backup for Dave anyway. He doesn't need increased compensation if he's fulfilling a role that he has already been hired on to do.
That's correct.
There's no need to rush and say, now he needs $70 an hour because of this,
Sure.
because he's filling in for Dave.
The only, I guess, exception would be if there's an emergency and he decides between now and Monday he's going to resign his position.
Well, and he is entitled to do that.
Sure, absolutely.
Should that be?
Absolutely.
But that may mean that he may not be hired on as a contractor
Correct.
either,
That's
as a
accurate as
result
well.
of that decision on his
Absolutely.
part. So, yes, he is free will to do whatever he wants.
Yep.
But the fact of the matter is, as a village employee that he currently is, we have no obligation to increase his pay for filling in for a job that he's already in his job
You're
description.
100% correct.
Is that in his job description, who's the backup?
Yes.
I
Yes.
thought it was, so, okay.
But the situation you're facing is he's not going to do this for $40 an hour next week.
Is he resigning for next week? I mean, if he resigns, okay.
I mean, that's his current employment agreement.
He has said he's not gonna do it. I'm behind, I'm not
Correct.
getting.
He has said that?
So do we have inspections scheduled for next week?
Yes.
May
Dave,
not be pushed off?
Then I guess it gets deferred to the following week.
Dave has asked him to do inspections next week.
And perhaps perhaps Dan gets
Did he?
discharged.
I don't recall, in the meeting, the only time we met with him, Councilman Cannon and I, there was no threat of quitting.
No, and I don't like any inference of a threat to the village to say, I'm not gonna do it because
No.
I want more money.
He didn't make it.
Okay.
So the mayor just said,
Well, in our meeting,
There was no difference, and I understood where he was coming from. He wants to get paid closer to the market rate, which is understandable. But at the same time, it's gonna be a process, because right now you're a village employee, and what you're asking for can't be done as a village employee.
Has he done building inspections before for us?
I believe so last year. I mean, he was working last year. I don't know what all inspections he did. We didn't get a report of what exactly he did.
So why the change?
It's a great question.
The change is just he wants more money for doing an inspection.
Okay, so
I do too.
let's go back to the village meeting.
Who doesn't?
We have hired Inspection Solutions, a company, to handle our building inspections. Dave is free to subcontract that, if you will. He can hire anybody he wants to do that work in his absence.
Good point.
Under, as long as they're qualified, he can have XYZ come and do the inspections. So isn't it incumbent upon Dave to say, these inspections are scheduled for next week, I'm not going to be here, I need to find someone to cover that, and that contract is between Inspection Solutions and that individual or company or whatever it is.
that's the case if Dave says, I'm not doing it for $40 and I don't wanna be an employee of the village.
Not Dave.
You mean
Dan.
Dan.
Well, okay, and so, you know, that's Dan's choice, but ultimately Dave has the responsibility to see that those inspections are done next week. Am I missing something?
You're not missing anything.
Okay.
We did bring up, this is August, in July's meeting to Dave, the option of hiring Dan as an employee. He's not interested in hiring any employees.
Okay, well, he could, again, Dan has his own LLC, he could subcontract it to another company, et cetera. I mean, that can all be done, but from a village perspective, it's Dave, these need to be done, you're the guy, make it happen. Either you do it personally or you find someone, and if Dan's available as an employee, great. If he's not, okay, whatever it is, figure it out. I mean, isn't that the contract we have with Inspection Solutions?
Yes.
So.
Now, in the past, Inspection Solutions, Dave had reached out to a buddy at the county to cover inspections as well. And he does that quid pro quo for them, okay? Now, that's also an option that is available to Dave, but, you know.
I get the sense that Dan's a very reasonable guy, and I think next week it would come up and say, Dan, we really need to do inspections, he would come do it for $40 an hour, and he could still move with the process of submitting to us a contract proposal, $60 per inspection through his LLC rather than an employee.
I would hope that
That's the impression I get from Dan.
Okay.
You know, and we all had the impression until the mayor indicated that he wasn't gonna do it, so.
I guess until proven otherwise, that's
I guess we'll
how I
see.
expect it to happen.
Any other questions of the building committee? Chief, you're up.
Thank you. I submitted a month-end report, and other than the traffic light updates I gave you, today was the deadline to submit applications for the full and part-time positions, openings that we have. We advertised in the Plain Dealer and the News Herald, and we will schedule interviews with HR and safety very soon. And that's all.
How many, applications do you expect, Chief?
We already have them.
How many do you have?
We're really running out. 7.
Really?
Yeah.
Is that high or low?
We used to get 100.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you explain the cruiser and why we need to
Sure.
do that?
So Ford will be opening the bids, the order bank for the new cruisers this year in October, sometime in October. They are going to be opening that window for a very short period of time. You have to have a purchase order ready to go. If you don't have your purchase order ready to go, they will not accept your order. So it's kind of a time constraint, but this is for next year's cruiser. So we need to amend the budget to have the money for the cruiser this year, but we won't be paying for it until next year when it comes in. So it's just because the order bank will only be open for a short period of time.
And this is because of the parts squeeze and everything?
Well, yeah, and that Ford is not guaranteeing anybody's vehicle. They base it on how many vehicles you've ordered in the past and your order history. So if you've ordered 5 cars, you're a bigger city, you've ordered 5 cars in the past, they will likely give you your 5 cars. We've historically ordered every year, so we will likely be able to get that, but they're not guaranteeing anything beyond that order window.
So you might even just take delivery a year from now.
Well, if you get your order placed, if you get your order accepted. So if you don't have your purchase order, and you're ready to go in October, they won't even talk to you.
Yeah.
So that's what we've been instructed to do. The safety committee, we've talked about looking at other vehicles. The safety committee decided that we want to stick with what we're used to, what we've had, and what's been successful for us in the past.
Okay.
Questions of the police?
Is this a hybrid or is this a standard car?
Yeah, we're gonna shoot for a hybrid again.
Hybrid, okay.
The other option out there, if we go with a Chevy, that would be the police package, is the Tahoe, which is the full-size SUV. I'd probably have to double or maybe even triple my fuel budget. So I'd like to stick with what we've got and stick with those hybrids.
Questions of the police chief? Hearing none. Chief, I know the South Russell Village Police Association is not a village activity, but thank you and thanks to the farmer's market for making us look good. The car show was, they just make us look good.
Great.
All right, safety committee.
Okay, thank you very much, Mayor. In your package, you found the minutes of our July 7th and August 3rd safety meeting and questions. Our next meeting will be September 7th at 9 a.m. at the station. And yes, Chief, congratulations to you and your team for the car show.
Thank you.
Great event.
Appreciate it.
Great event. That's all.
Motion. Because revised, yeah. Safety committee.
Oh, yes, we do. Okay, thank you. At this time, I'd like to make a motion to approve construction progress payment application number 1 with the South Russell Village share of $44,068 and OPWC share of $44,068 to Perm Electric Inc. for the State Route 306 and Bell Street traffic signal project.
Second.
Moved and seconded, discussion. Is it Parham, P-A-R-R-A-M?
Param.
P-E. Okay. Motion and seconded, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed. HR committee.
HR, I feel like I'm in a morass. We had, you had minutes in your packet. I think we had 2 sets of minutes from July and from August. We had a very lengthy meeting last week on the 3rd, talking with Jim Budzik of Mansard Gavin, continuing to go over the fine points of the handbook and what we'd like to change. And I'd like to thank Mr. Berger for his acute and very good questioning based on his background. It's been quite a learning process for me. The chief was there, Tim was there giving their input with their departments, and we're not done. Jim Budzik, to me, looks like a very intelligent, good listener that just gets to the heart of what we need specifically as a village, and here's that. I hope that everybody will read the minutes, and Danielle did help me with these minutes, and I thank you for that, Danielle. That seems to be, am I missing something, Chris Berger, with HR? Anything in regards to our meeting and the progress going forward?
No.
Okay. Let's see, we have a motion to approve overtime though for Thad Blair on June 25th and June 23rd, a total of 5 hours for him, and Rick Pausch for July 2nd, 2 hours. So I'm making that motion to approve overtime for Thad Blair for a total of 5 hours and Rick Pausch for 2 hours.
You can explain why.
Been moved and seconded.
Okay, second.
Can we get a second before we get a motion up? Did you second, Chris?
I
Thank you.
seconded it. Okay, so the explanation is that we will be changing the overtime policy in how overtime is calculated. It's coming in the handbook. We've had the discussion. We think it makes sense. And so we are calculating overtime according to the way the policy will be changed in the handbook, but we haven't adopted it in the handbook yet. So that's the reason why we're making the motion.
Mhm.
Thank you. Been moved and seconded. Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. What else you got for property? Oh, pardon me. You're on HR.
Yeah, I don't know if it comes more with properties, so I'll wait. Well, I'm already on properties. Oh, hello, Rick. Okay.
Any questions for the HR committee?
Mike has given me, and we talked about this. Somehow I thought I remember saying I sadly accept the resignation of young Mike Harding last week, but we need to acknowledge the resignation of Mike Harding along with that. Whoever gets him is a lucky department. That's all, what a fine young man.
I thought we approved it at the last.
We did. I said we said something about it. I just remember saying sadly, we accept it, but I think Chief just wants to acknowledge.
Yeah, no, I saw it on the agenda, and I said instead of accept, I thought we had to acknowledge it, but if we did it last time around,
I feel like it was at the special council meeting.
We did.
maybe it was done.
Yeah, I think it was done, yeah.
Okay, now through the property committee.
Properties, what a committee to be on, but I don't want finance. We have a lot, and I have a sticky note that I think I gotta do a mea culpa, just like the engineer did. I think I was supposed to call Bridie and let her know, and I didn't do it, that Chagrin Cross Country / Track wants to hold 4 track meets at the park. Which,
It's under Parks Committee.
come on, well, you know, they're,
Follow the agenda.
all right.
You're still.
All right, so, okay, properties.
It's all you anyway, so just keep going.
I know, I'm very discombobulated tonight, and I'm the first to say that, so apologies. I think the largest thing with properties is the house, the former Holtz Fairweather house.
Here's
Listen,
You're out of order.
but I'm gonna go out of order because Holtz isn't listed here. We have had the inspection for the asbestos. Knock it off, Dennis.
This isn't listed.
We've had the inspection for the asbestos. We paid $3,000 for that. And at that point, I'm going to defer to Tim because he's done all the hard work with this.
Okay. You might say we failed. There is asbestos located in the structures, in both of them. the county of Lake Geauga and Trumbull, I believe, have the same EPA representative. And through his work with the state, he changed the level of permissible asbestos from 100 down to 50. Our number is 70, so we have to have remediation. So there's a company out there that's willing to come in on the 25th and take care of that for us for $2,500. And in talking to the company that took care of the inspection, this is a deal. There's this company, they work 4 10-hour days and they bring their people in on small jobs on every Friday. And they always have these small jobs to do. We would be one of those jobs, and they would do it on the 25th. Then we could still move forward with the destruction or demolition.
And the places that they found the asbestos,
There was in the furnace ductwork of the old part of the house, which is the vertical flue, and in the upper landing of the steps, there's a piece of linoleum that has asbestos, and in the smaller building, in the ceiling, there's asbestos rock panels of like 8 or 9 square feet. It's really minimal that they're gonna take. They're gonna take those 3 areas and drop our number below 70, and then we'll be able to go forward.
So you don't have to mitigate it down to 0, you just
No.
have to mitigate it down to
Below 70.
Okay.
What is
What's
the
the
cost?
cost?
2,500.
2,500, and what's the company?
environmental protection systems.
Okay, so we need a motion.
Well, I have one question, I'm sorry. Will there be, after it's, you said they come out and they remediate it on the 25th?
Yes.
Is there another inspection to
No.
make sure that it's dropped down? How do they determine whether or not it's moved from 70?
If the EPA wants to come out and visually see it, they can. They have to be notified 10 days before the demolition to give them an opportunity to come out and look.
But they won't be, right? Because the demolition's gonna occur on the 26th, they won't have 10 days.
This is what the company told me, that they're all well within their rights to do that. After the remediation, they're well within their rights to demolish on the 26th, but that hasn't been scheduled yet.
Well, I was gonna ask, is there a deadline for the demolition? Is there any reason why we wouldn't want to just, I mean, you know, as the village, I would say, if we're going through this process to inspect the asbestos and to remediate it, I mean, I don't see any harm in giving 10-day notice like we're supposed to the EPA.
We have to do a 10-day notice.
So tomorrow's the 15th, you give them the
Tomorrow's the-
notice, and then you do it on the 25th, so, right, so they would have their
There's
notice?
10
I
days.
think the company that did the inspection takes care of all of it. They said I have to do, there's nothing more for me to do other than contact those people and set up the remediation.
I guess I'm confused as to the remediation happens on the 25th and on the 26th we want to demolish. I guess I thought, no.
We have an opportunity, you can, after the 25th, but we don't have that scheduled at all.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. I'm trying to figure out when the 10-day notice to the EPA is to come and check to see basically if our remediation was successful.
Correct.
Okay. I
That's-
just want to make sure we have that.
The company that does the asbestos remediation provides a certificate that they have remediated in these identified areas.
It's their job to turn it over to the EPA.
Which goes to the EPA, and then the EPA has 10 days to come and look at it.
From what I understand, I haven't thought about it that way, but that makes sense.
Do they have an
It's what they
agreement?
want.
Does the remediation company have an agreement that we need to sign off on that says kind of what they do and the process? I
I
just feel
haven't
like,
said anything from them. I think
okay,
they might be working through the company that did the inspection.
okay. I would think that we would want something that shows, I mean, we're doing this process, we're clearly spending money to do the correct thing to abate the asbestos, which we're supposed to do on a commercial building. I would think we'd want those assurances.
Tomorrow.
Okay.
So then we approve the contract for 25, not to exceed $2,500, pending receipt of confirmation that the remediation company is
Performed it.
is providing Ohio EPA or the county, whoever it is, 10 days to do a re-inspection to assure removal.
Just remind me, is the contract through, is it through HZW that then contracts with the remediation company? So the village is actually not a party to the contract?
I haven't seen one.
Right.
But, okay,
Are we asking those questions?
HCW is going to bill us $2,500 for this?
Well, we haven't set an account with the other company. Let me call tomorrow, another day.
Why don't we hold off on this until we know what we're doing?
Well, can we move forward with the remediation?
Yes, I think we should do that. But we're not gonna do the demolition.
Oh, no.
Can
Can I spend
I
2,500, right?
I just wanna go back, because I can't remember what the threshold was. Was it 3,000 without department head approval? But in any event, I just wanna make sure, I think we're confusing, I'm definitely confused. Is there, I know there's the demolition, that's separate from, I'm assuming the remediation.
Correct.
So I would think that we would need, I mean, I know we're working through HZW to kind of get this set up, but I just want to make sure we're not really a party to the contract. The village is not signing on with this new, it was called environmental. I forget the name of it.
Yeah.
Are we signing on with them? And we're paying them directly $2,500, or are we paying HZW an additional $2,500 to take care of this remediation through EPS?
I don't know.
Okay,
I will find out.
okay. I think that's
Why don't we
important.
hold off on this then?
But we go forward with the remediation, that's all I need.
Well, sure, but, I mean, we need to know who we're contracting.
Right, I'll find that out tomorrow. I will let the streets committee, or I'll let Brian know tomorrow.
But if we don't vote on it, we can't go forward.
Yeah.
So
Well, that's the question about the $3,000. Department head can spend $3,000 less without council approval if it's in his budget, as I
I
recall.
think that's right. I think the 3,000 is in my head for some reason.
Yeah, I think
although
that's
it was
correct.
1,500.
If Tim has the money in his budget,
No, sure.
he can go ahead and do the remediation.
But you, again, and I'm not trying to be a pain, I'm just saying.
No, we want to do this right.
Well, if you recall, with respect to HCW, right, that one of the council meetings, we said, okay, pending a, get the asbestos inspection, we had to meet specially then, once we got the actual contract, because it was above the amount where the department head could simply just sign off on it. Right, okay. I feel like, again, that was $3,000, so maybe
Yep.
that
It
was
was.
the difference.
It
Okay.
was.
But I still think you would want something that's gonna say, exactly how that follow-through is going to be with the EPA. That in fact, we did remediate, there's no issue here. We've brought the level down, even if we're not a party to the contract, I mean, we're paying for it, and I think this is the village's property. We wanna ensure that it's been abated.
Yeah.
Because we don't have a contract with them. We did a contract with them. And we did a contract with the guy doing the survey, not with the one who's demolishing.
Right, and the,
No, we're not, this is just the asbestos, this is not.
right, this is not the demolition, so, and again, the scope of services with HCW was just the inspection, it was not remediation. That's, I guess my concern is that would be an additional scope I would think we would want added either to this contract, or we would want a separate contract with environmental, sorry, what was it called?
protection service.
Thank you.
Environmental
Yes.
protection systems, yeah. So he has the right to call them tomorrow because it's less than $3,000 and get this, just the clean out done. And you'll find out, Tim, to get the paperwork, et cetera.
Yeah, go through the emails now, I did forward Danielle and W9 for EPS. And I'm checking to see if there was any other paperwork.
So that would be who we're contracting with, would be EPS.
You would think.
Yeah, because they gave us a
They
W-9.
gave us a W-9.
I just think, again, we would want some assurance in writing that in fact they are following through, they're giving the notice, whatever it is required for EPA, asbestos is being remediated, and then we get the green light to demolish. Not from them, but just in general, that would be our green light to go ahead and demolish that building.
Well, I'd be looking for a certificate of some kind
Absolutely.
from EPS saying, they abated everything, they notified the county, Ohio EPA, whoever, and that the asbestos has been resolved.
Yes, I would highly recommend we get that.
Is that what we're going to get, Tim?
So then we don't make any, there's no motion, no nothing, he just deals with this. Do we have to have a special meeting in order to get this done before the next meeting? Sounds like.
Well, so there were some issues in the contract that we had with the inspection service. If you remember, there were a couple of, they had indemnification in their contract, we're not allowed to indemnify. So there were certain things, and we did have to, again, I think the special meeting though was more for the approval because of the amount of money to the department head to sign off. So you could do it, I guess, pending an appropriate
result.
Contract or something.
Contract with the, remediation company.
Yeah, we can do that.
You can do it that way. And that way you can at least move forward and say, listen, we'd like to go forward with you, right, with this. You're the guy to remediate, but we do need something in writing that says what your scope is.
I forwarded you the email from them, it's their workman's comp, their liability insurance, and their W-9.
Yeah,
I said that to you already.
and I'm happy to reach out if you want me to, but if
Okay.
you're, perfect. We
Okay,
just
how
want
about
that
this?
contract.
I move that the street commissioner, solicitor, mayor, and fiscal officer be authorized to contract with EPS for the purposes of asbestos remediation in the recently bought properties, corner 306 and Bell, in an amount not to exceed $2,500 pending approval by the solicitor, a written instrument indicating the scope of work and the assurances and certificates that will be provided. So moved.
Second, thank you.
Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion passes. Okay.
And now,
Anything else for the property committee?
yes,
Keep going.
motion to hold a History of South Russell luncheon on Thursday, September 14th, 11:30 at Augie's Pizza. $1,000, maximum of 50 RSVPs. I hope we even get that, and somebody give me a second on that motion.
So moved. Moved and seconded, discussion.
Question for you, Ruth. Earlier
Yes.
you had indicated that invitations already went out.
Yeah.
Who's being invited to
So-
this event?
This is an adjunct in my mind to what didn't really occur on July 23rd, mostly weather-wise. The old people
Senior citizens.
Senior citizens do not like to come out and have to go home at dark, and we had horrible downpours all around. I put it out there in I've talked to everyone that I could, that I remembered that had any kind of link to South Russell. And they seem to be more amenable to a daytime affair. And so that's why I'm having it, this is a one and done. I'm having it in regards to the centennial. And I have a list of folks that are from the olden days.
Well, what is defined by the olden days? Because what I'm concerned about is if it's a certain cohort only, that there may be others within the village. Say, for instance, it's everybody over 70 years old or over 80 years old. Are we inviting all people over 80 or just a small group of certain people?
If they lived here,
I can answer, it's in the newsletter, that everyone's invited.
Everyone,
Resident.
every resident is invited.
however, we're not going to exceed 50.
Oh, yeah.
Who are they RSVPing to?
Me.
You got the newsletter, it was in the newsletter.
Well, we didn't bring this letter to the printer yet until it was approved tonight.
It's in the newsletter. Yeah.
It was.
Okay.
So the point, Dennis, it's okay, he can ask the question and I can answer it. If I know, and I pretty much know who was here, that's still around and still functioning, that was here in the 50s, some of them in the 40s, very few, 50s, 60s, and remembers the village more as a very rural place with very few subdivisions. They experienced some things that are their history. They're our history.
No question on my mind. I want to avoid some people feeling like they were slighted by not receiving an invitation who may be in that same age cohort as the people that you have already invited from your list.
So
That's all, because you have to justify and say, it was open to all hands, instead of saying, I've identified 20 friends and that's who I invited.
So you
That's all I'm saying.
But the mayor has made sure that we put it in the newsletter and said, if you're interested, give us a call. And we set the threshold, the top at $1,000 and 50 RSVPs. I'm gonna give an assignment. Tell me what some large memory of your years in South Russell was. And I've already forgotten the second one, but I want to hear what they remember.
Is this a first come, first served kind of basis, Ruth?
I
For
would
the
say
15?
so, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
And the people that we already invited, how did we invite them?
I bought invitations and mailed them out.
Okay, so
Just-
those people know before the others who will receive.
I am not trying to slight anybody,
I'm
Dennis.
just, hey, it ought to be open to reasonable expectations for all hands. That's all I'm saying. We already have an issue where some 50 people or whatever have received invitations in the mail. Others maybe can get it through the forthcoming newsletter.
Well,
All I'm saying is, you want to make it fair, Ruth, that's all. And subject to outside criticism.
there is no Buffalo drumbeat to get to the history with Ruth. There doesn't seem to be the large attraction to history projects that this nerd, this history reading nerd. That being said, I have been invited into old homes, century homes that have had amazing work done, work that is exactly how it should be, that it keeps the integrity of the home, the barn, the whatever, and I appreciate this so much. We have, the pictures that we have gotten, there are people, I'm afraid I might leave a few people out that have just been generous in giving, and we don't have a place to store this stuff. So, just for example, last week, I won't say their name, but a Century Home owner had the actual property deed that went all the way back to Aristarchus Champion. Aristarchus Champion is the son of Henry Champion, who trekked his way here with Moses Cleveland. And it was a copy, and a family member had researched the deeds and had gone into the archives. I read this stuff, I have chills even talking about it. This is amazing. It's, the settlers come into the Western Reserve.
So if you get inundated with reservations.
I will be extremely surprised.
But it would be easy to call a special meeting if you need to up the number attending.
Well, you might be limited by the venue.
Well, and then shifting the venue to something that can accommodate this deluge of people who wish.
I would pray. Yeah.
You might even have to move it to the park and have all these catered.
But then the old people wouldn't come.
The old people have, they
Come on. All right, we have a motion to hold a historic history of South Russell luncheon on Thursday, September 14th, 11:30 a.m. at Augie's Pizza, $1,000 maximum, 50 RSVP. It's been moved and seconded. Discussion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion passes. Anything else on the property, Ruby?
Let's see, properties, we already did the motion to perform asbestos removal.
Why don't we do something easy? Those two things you have in front of you, the plaque and the
Yes,
resolution.
plaque. Dennis, you've thrown me off course there.
You were off course before.
I was off course.
I had to show you the agenda.
All right, you win. Ruth can't even function. We have a nice resolution from the Ohio, I don't know where's Zoom, where do I hold this
You got it.
so that we read it? From, here we are,
Yes.
Ohio House of Representatives, and it's 5 or 6 whereas the 100th anniversary of the Village of South Russell offers its citizens the opportunity to share their memories. Oh, look at that, and experiences. And we just want to thank those that signed it, and that was very nice. We also had one from Woodmere, the mayor of the Village of Woodmere, Benjamin Holbert, and his is a bronze plaque, and that is equally nice. And this 100th, I've enjoyed it. I've enjoyed doing the website and just going forward. And everybody has been ever so helpful. And I need to I'll do that under new business because you guys are tired of hearing.
All right, any questions of the property committee? Where's the park committee?
Park committee. What do you hand that one over to Jerry, for God's sake? Park Committee, we need a motion to approve flower entertainment agreement for the Fall Festival.
So moved.
They are taking the place of, are they taking the place of somebody?
Yeah.
Yes, Game Praise from last year, because we still have an issue with them. So, motion again.
That's $3,800.
Mhm.
Here's what I found.
Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion passes.
Jerry is more attuned to this Game Praise issue. We contracted with them last year. We had the high winds. They couldn't set up the, what's the blow up things called, Jerry?
Bouncy house.
Bouncy houses, yeah, because of the wind. And so they seem to be happy with what was contracted, what they had to do with what was paid, and then I believe in June, we got a bill out of the blue for $994 or something like that. And it was because they had, not because they couldn't set up and do their job, it was because we had to change the date from date one and go with the second date. And I don't know.
Happen to read the contract?
I did last year, yes.
Okay, are they correct? Do we owe them $900?
I think we do. I mean, there was a confusion as to what the assurance plan was, if you remember from the original contract. And I don't know if any of the park committee reached out to Game Praise, asked what the assurance plan was, but there is an actual percentage that they charge for, I think, a cancellation. And I can't remember if we were the ones that canceled within a certain time period or if they canceled because of high winds. But either way,
We canceled,
okay.
but they canceled putting up the.
They were the ones that made the call, yeah.
And the climbing wall, they refused to put it up because of the wind. So although they transported those two items, we didn't use them. So
There
my
was no-
question is, why should we pay for it?
And I agree with him.
Okay.
Did they get paid their original contract?
Yes. Yes.
Because they require payment like a week or two ahead of time, so they got their payment.
Mhm.
And then, like, they called it a cancellation, I thought it was more of a postponement, but we didn't get a bill until June is when this whole thing came up. So we didn't know we owed them, and then it was when the park committee reached out to them this year to set it up. They said, well, you still owe us $900. So I'm like, wait a minute, so when I was looking at the percentages, I thought it would have been a less percentage, but she said she wasn't notified until 10:30 on that Saturday, the day before the event, that we were canceled, even though we canceled it on Friday, so it fell into less than 24-hour notice, and so she said we should, we went back and forth, I explained to them everything, but yeah, so they want their money, and I believe the park committee decided they're not gonna do a rock climbing wall, they got bouncy houses from that flower entertainment.
So do we, solicit your opinion, is we owe Game Praise for last year?
I did not know that they had transported the equipment on that day, but decided that day not to put it up.
Well, no, they didn't on the rain day?
Yes, on the rain
The
day.
rain day, they did not set up, they did not do anything, but she told me because with such a short notice, everything was on the truck and ready to go, that's why we had to pay so much. Then when they brought it for the rain date, it was also windy that day, so even though they brought it that day, things weren't set up
They
because.
made the decision not to.
And they,
Yes.
says they got that right.
Right, I mean, that was the assurance plan part of the, I think that was actually part of the contract.
Okay,
I mean,
so,
we can go back and try to negotiate, see if they'll take something less.
well, so in your estimation, we owe them 900 plus.
$994.60.
I think the contract does provide for that, but we
Okay.
certainly can try to negotiate. Keep in mind, they didn't invoice us until June.
Well, I know that you have been discussing this with them,
Heck, oh.
on and on and on, they won't budge, right?
They said that they've already charged us less than they were supposed to.
And we have the option of hiring someone else, which.
And we did.
done.
Let's just hold this off for another month. See if they,
All right,
or anything. They came to us, right?
No, I think, didn't this all come about with the June invoice because we had reached out to see if they would be
We came to
available
them,
for this
yeah.
year's fall festival? Am I wrong on that?
What you saying?
You received the invoice only because, right, the park committee had reached out to see if they were available for this
Well,
year's?
no,
fall
Martha
festival?
was in touch with them in June. They reached out and said in June that we were owed them money.
Oh, okay.
And then I pulled all the receipts from last year and I pulled the check and I said, no, Martha, I paid them. So she sent it to them. We didn't hear anything. So we thought, okay, they had it wrong in their books. And then that's when the back and forth started. That no, we got what you originally paid us, but you didn't give us the rain date money. And we didn't know there was rain date money.
Let's just hold and see what they do. Let's do nothing. We're not using them this year.
Okay, I mean, you know, if Danielle's saying that they're not budgeting, I mean, I'm happy to call and see if there's any way we can negotiate a lower price. But I mean, at the end of the day, it sounds like the contract provided for this.
They would have gotten about, if we hadn't called them, if we hadn't contacted them this year, they would have gotten about last year. So
No, I think that's not true, right? Didn't they send the invoice regardless of us reaching out to them for the fall festival this year? No, isn't that right?
They did, they reached out to us, like I said, and said that we owed them, but we misunderstood what was we owed.
Excuse me, they reached out to us prior to March.
The problem is the park committee is the one in contact with them. So all I know is when I pulled the stuff from Martha, I don't know what her conversation exactly was with them.
Right. Do you guys know? As
I think Martha told, I'm pretty sure they told Martha we owed them. That's how we found out about it.
Yeah,
In other words, Martha wasn't calling to say, please come to this year's fall festival. And they said, well, you owe us. So-
Exactly.
that is how it happened.
That's how it happened.
Oh, okay. Wow. I mean, again, I think that a lesser amount is always an opportunity, right, to try to see if we can.
Shall we have the solicitor contact this company?
no, I'll call them.
Okay.
Why have to waste your time? I'll call them.
All right,
All right, we are now at the closing the park.
motion to close the park for middle school cross-country meets. Anybody to hear this? Motion to close the park for middle school cross-country meets from 3 to 6 p.m. on 4 dates, August 29th, September 26th, October 5th, and October 10th.
We did second.
We just had a question here in the office.
Well, let's get a
Because
second.
if you're gonna close the park,
Second,
I'm sorry,
okay.
if you close the park, what about we were thinking here, what about the parents that have to go to the meet? Are they allowed to still park there?
Yeah, they're gonna have to.
Right?
What's that?
The playground will remain open.
Pretty much anybody could go. What,
Yeah, they can
Well,
come.
that's what I'm saying.
We want to keep the people off the trails.
Trails is where they want to go.
There's a cross-country meet. People know how, I guess they know how to behave at a cross-country meet.
So do you close the park or do you close the trails? I guess was my,
Okay, it's close to trails.
I have a question.
Okay.
I have a question. It might have been a year ago, time goes so fast, I think it was a year ago. I happened to go past the park and I saw cross country. And I pulled in and I introduced myself to the coach. And it was Kingston. And I welcomed him and them and said, very happy to have you. But did you happen to contact the village hall out of courtesy and ask permission, which would be granted, for you to have your warm-ups and your practice and all that? And he said, no. I said, well, if I might make a suggestion, do this again, would you please call up the village hall? So we know you're gonna be there. And he said, he would. Now, do we have area cross-country teams using our parks for practice?
Yeah, Kenston comes about twice a year.
Okay.
And Chagrin does occasionally.
Do they call? Do they call and say, hey, is it okay if we come? I mean, they just show up.
yeah, it's a
It's a
public
public
park.
park, yeah, they can come anytime.
Well, yes, but out of courtesy, I thought it would be the proper thing to do.
I don't think anybody
Well,
wants to be there.
Whatever track we ran, where we ran that day, we didn't call it in.
Well, if you're running a meet,
No, this was a mixed practice.
I mean, practice one thing, but this motion is about meets.
Yeah.
Now,
And I've been to a few of these cross-country meets, and it's like, the Grateful Dead, and, you know, it's like a cult, and there's like people, and they have like, you know, the cabanas, and they're handing out fruit, and, you know, it's quite the experience. Is there enough parking to accommodate all of these?
Anybody know if this is a two-school
Yeah.
or a multi-school event?
Right, if it's.
Because a multi-school, it's gonna be, to Mark's point, it's gonna be a zoo. I mean, and parking is just incredible at any of these Saturday multi-school meets that we have. I don't know what days of the week these are, but if it's in, you know, Kenston, Chagrin Falls, or, you know, Chagrin Falls against Berkshire or whatever, you know, I think we could easily handle two schools.
Yeah.
But you got, I mean, there are Kiwanis clubs coordinating parking in huge fields for some of these Saturday multi-school events.
Right.
And with the tents and everything else.
Oh, yeah, I mean, it's an all-day thing. for-
These are,
for race that-
these are weekday. These are weekday.
Oh, they are?
So it's probably not a multi-school event.
I don't know the answer.
Two to three schools, they were gonna use buses, and from what I understand from the conversation, they're estimating 50 or so students of middle school.
Oh, that's all?
Yeah.
Which side of the park will they be using? Washington or
Pavilion with the bathroom.
Oh, I imagine they're running the whole length of the park, right?
Like where they're convening and stuff.
Oh, yeah, okay.
They would place their flags and mark where they want everybody to go, so they run this equal distance.
What about, I mean, that's 50 participants, what about spectators and the parking?
We'll park them along with high-tension lines. Okay, it's been moved and seconded.
No, I don't have any,
We have
I didn't write it down here.
Canton seconded. Any discussion?
Yeah, one more. I
Mhm.
think you mentioned you were just gonna change it to trails and not the whole park.
Okay,
Because wasn't the
Motion to
original-
close.
So I amend the motion to close the park trails for the middle school cross-country meets, and that's the important point. It's middle school, not high school. From 3 to 6 on August 29th, September 26th, October 5th, October 10th.
been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion passes. You're still up, Ruth. Anything else on the park?
We'll keep going.
Ruth, do you have a date once again for our next meeting for the festival?
Yes, it's supposed to be September 12th, but I have a problem with that, but right now it's September 12th.
Okay. At 7 o'clock?
7 PM at the park.
At the pavilion.
Questions of our
Frazzled.
park committee? Hearing none, we are to public utilities.
Thank you, Mayor. The next meeting for public utilities has been moved to September 18th at 9 a.m. Also, in the minutes that were submitted, the mayor has suggested September 19th as a date for a stormwater meeting for the community.
I won't be here.
To update.
Uh-oh, sorry.
No, leave it there.
I think we have it scheduled. It's
Yeah.
already scheduled.
You
You scheduled it? Okay.
For
So,
for that day, for September 19th?
September 19th.
On Saturday. So no,
It's a Tuesday.
Tuesday. Oh, yeah.
We announced that at the
At the
public
last one.
utilities we had in the springtime. We said the next one would be then.
Would be then. So that is,
Traveling, that's an issue.
No, I don't think we're gonna have much at all.
But you never know.
okay. Well, it's out there and we'll figure out what we're gonna do with that. Okay, so in our public utilities meeting, we specifically addressed the significant stormwater issue with the great rains of the 25th of July, I think it was.
Correct.
Okay, and I think as a committee, we concurred that all of the work that has been done to address stormwater, that it did its job. Did that mean we didn't have any issues with stormwater? No, we continue to have issues, and we've noted some of those in our minutes, things that need to be addressed. But that the major issues that worked, the central detention basin worked, Manor Brook worked as a project. So I think from that standpoint, we were pleased with what we've done so far. Just a couple of things here. And, number one, we would like to ask the solicitor to begin considering easement agreements for the 44 ponds that we have in the community. As we've talked about putting together a program much like the road program of addressing what ponds need attention and how to assist with that. So we now have the list of the 44 ponds, 41, I apologize, 41. And, but we need easement agreements with the owners of those ponds in order to have access to assess them and to decide what their status is. So that's an issue. We also have at, next to the property at 500 Manor Brook, which is adjacent to the power lines, we had an issue in the storm where we had a significant amount of water that overflowed the stormwater drainage ditch and ended up on the property there. We're suggesting that we need to come up with an easement agreement with the HOA for the property under the power lines, as well as the homeowner at that property, to decide who's responsible for what part of that system and what we will do to maintain it. And so we're asking for assistance from the solicitor. Is that fair, Mark?
It is.
Okay.
The idea here, Brian, is that at our next Public Utilities Committee meeting, that you would be able to enlighten us as to the best method to approach the homeowners, the property owners for each of the 41 or so ponds and silt ponds and whatnot to get access onto the property for stormwater monitoring purposes. And I think what we're thinking is we start with like the first 10, because those are the biggest ones. And we work our way down. And I don't know if this takes the form of a letter with a potential agreement with it, or we have the mayor drop by, or something along those lines to start this process rolling. And we're hoping that at least the top 10 allow us to do this, so that we can do what Chris was talking about, like the road program and the PCI index, same idea, so that we would annually monitor the depth of these and figure out what the current depth is, and then as it goes on year by year, and then per the engineer's recommendations at some point down the road, we might decide that this pond needs to be dredged, let the property owner know, and then in advance of that notification, we would discuss potential village assistance, maybe, for that purpose. But we need the easements to do the monitoring, and if your office could make some recommendations to yourself, we would be glad to hear it.
Do you need easements or do you just need permission? Because the pond people, the pond owners, they're being served. It's a plus.
They are indeed, but eventually everyone's going to leave the village one way or the other, right? That's, we want an easement that runs with the land.
Okay.
So that whoever buys the property knows that the village has the right to come on annually and do the inspection that we're talking about. So we want something recorded.
For perpetuity.
On the county records in perpetuity, yes.
Are we offering any kind of nominal consideration for the easement, or?
I'm thinking $10 and the results of the inspection. $10 for the easement, one time, and the results in perpetuity.
Okay, thank you for that. One of the significant issues we did have with stormwater is we had some areas that we had not previously addressed. The commercial area back behind Hunian, Burntwood off of East Washington, they struggled with significant water in their facilities. And we're not really sure what's the cause of that. We're making council aware that we will probably enter into discussions not only with those businesses, but with both Chagrin Falls and potentially Moreland Hills in terms of if we fix the water issue there in terms of providing additional drainage, that we will be sending more water down the hill to Chagrin Falls, and they should be part of the solution so they know that it's coming. And potentially into the river, which would then flow to Moreland Hills, which might cause problems. So we're trying to be comprehensive in our approach to, we need to solve the problem for these commercial residents of our village, but we also don't want to incur greater problems downstream by doing that. So we're looking at those types of issues now as part of a, if you will, phase 2 or phase 3 of stormwater. So we're making you aware of that. One other issue, and this for the street commissioner, we talked at our meeting about potentially having to re-roof the streets building as part of the solar panel.
Right. If we're gonna put solar panels on the roof, we should replace the roof first.
Okay, and do we have any idea of what the cost of that might be, or? Not yet. Okay, so we need to be aware that in our discussions for solar panels, that we should update any of the roofing that needs to be done before we install the solar panels on them. So that was the only other issue I had. So subject to any questions or further comments by Councilman Porter, that concludes the public utilities report.
Just one note on the Washington Street business. We're not talking about next year to like dig up the stormwater piping.
Mhm.
We're talking about like in the next 10 years because we just paved it. So, but we haven't had this type of water issue.
That storm was, it had affected everyone. It was something.
I have not heard of that kind of flooding before in East Washington, but it's happened. It may happen again. It probably will down the road. And consequently, when we were talking about it now, this is part of our shift from like reaction,
To
central retention basin,
To
phase
proactive.
blah, blah, blah,
Yeah.
to plan ahead so that the next time East Washington gets paid, we think about and have in place the idea that maybe we redo the storm sewer system on East Washington. And in the meantime, the engineer could be out getting grants perhaps for this. But it affects us, Chagrin, Moreland Hills, maybe others.
Roller rink area with that stream behind it, they were inundated. It was a river.
You know, it's really that when it gets to the FOE.
It bypasses them,
Close.
it bypasses them and goes behind the poor roller rink.
So
So
instead of moving the kegs.
You know, I think when somebody has so much water in their garage that their car's destroyed, they look to us for help.
Yeah.
And, other things with the public utilities.
That's all. Thank you.
Anything else, public utilities? 2 comments. One, I don't know if you've been by, Bellwood has cleaned out their silt pond, and they basically did the same thing that Pawpaw did, just piled it on the side. And on last Tuesday, we heard from Pawpaw, they would love to negotiate. So, there you go. All right, we are now ordinances, resolutions. Jerry, you're up first.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Third reading of an ordinance amending section 618.01, section C, paragraph 2 of the codified ordinances of the Village of South Russell to require dogs on leashes not more than 8 feet long on property other than private property of dog owner and declaring an emergency.
You want to move to waive reading? I mean, I'm sorry, you want to move to adopt? It's the
And
third reading.
motion to suspend further readings.
Motion to adopt.
Motion to adopt.
Just adopt, yeah.
Second. Moved and seconded, discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
It's legislation. Canton, Canton,
Yes.
Roll call.
Kavanaugh.
What are we doing?
What are we doing?
It's legislation to do roll call.
So yes.
Galicki.
Aye.
Porter.
Aye.
Bell.
Aye.
Berger.
Aye.
Ordinance passes. Next one, Chris.
Second reading of an ordinance amending section 1440.04H1 of the codified ordinances of the Village of South Russell and declaring an emergency.
All right, that's second reading. Chris Berger. I think you got the next three, Chris.
Introduce and consider for adoption an ordinance amending section 220.01 of the codified ordinances of the Village of South Russell and declaring an emergency for 3 allowable posting methods.
We want to do this as.
Want to do 3 readings or you want to get it
Doing
done?
3 readings?
I think we just,
This is from the state
Yeah.
budget bill that just changed kind of how we publish, right, our codified ordinances, and we're just making it in line with what the new state
So
law
we
is.
Do you want to do it right away, or can we
A little
do
bit,
3 readings?
3 readings is fine.
First.
Okay.
Therefore, first reading.
All right, thank you. Next one, Chris.
Introduce and consider for adoption an ordinance to approve current replacement pages to the South Russell codified ordinances and declaring an emergency.
I would waive on this one.
Waive further readings.
Second.
Roll call.
Canton,
Aye.
Kavanaugh.
Aye.
Galicki.
Aye.
Porter.
Aye.
Bell.
Aye.
Berger.
Aye, move to adopt.
Second.
Canton,
Aye.
Kavanaugh.
Aye.
Galicki.
Aye.
Porter.
Aye.
Bell.
Aye.
Berger.
Aye.
All right, this ordinance passes. Chris.
Introduce and consider for adoption an ordinance approving the cost share agreement with the Schwinn River Watershed Partners regarding the Hi-Fi water level sensor network, authorizing the mayor to execute the cost share agreement on behalf of the village, declaring an emergency, waive further readings.
Second.
Roll call.
Canton,
Aye.
Kavanaugh.
Aye.
Galicki.
Aye.
Porter.
Aye.
Bell.
Aye.
Berger.
Aye, motion to adopt.
Second.
Canton,
Aye.
Kavanaugh.
Aye.
Galicki.
Aye.
Porter.
Aye.
Bell.
Aye.
Berger.
Aye.
Ordinance passes. Ruth, this one's yours.
I'm sorry. Introduce this, what are you telling me?
Personal property. South Beach.
Okay, right. Introduce and consider for adoption a resolution authorizing the discard or salvage of personal property not needed by the village and declaring an emergency.
Move to waive.
Move to waive readings.
Second.
Roll call.
Canton,
Aye.
Kavanaugh.
Aye.
Galicki.
Aye.
Porter.
Aye.
Bell.
Aye.
Berger.
Aye.
Move to adopt, Ruth.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Canton,
Aye.
Kavanaugh.
Aye.
Galicki.
Aye.
Porter.
Aye.
Bell.
Aye.
Berger.
Aye.
Resolution passes. Ruth, you got the next one?
Yeah, before I introduce, I have the list here. Does anybody want to go look at it, go down it?
It's attached to the legislation.
Okay. Introduce and consider for adoption a resolution authorizing the sale of personal property not needed by the village and declaring an emergency.
Move to waive readings.
Move to waive readings.
Second.
Canton,
Aye.
Kavanaugh.
Aye.
Galicki.
Aye.
Porter.
Aye.
Bell.
Aye.
Berger.
Aye.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Canton,
Aye.
Kavanaugh.
Aye.
Galicki.
Aye.
Porter.
Aye.
Bell.
Aye.
Berger.
Aye.
Resolution passes. Chris Berger.
Are we at the bills list?
At the amendment appropriations,
The amended appropriation.
because it was on the new agenda.
This one here, Chris.
Why do I not have that? Introduce and consider for adoption an ordinance amending the 2023 annual appropriations, increasing safety expenses $50,000 and income tax transfer expenses $46,450, declaring an emergency, waive further readings.
Second.
Roll call.
Canton.
Aye.
Kavanaugh. Stuckey.
Aye.
Porter.
Aye.
Bell.
Aye.
Berger.
Aye, move to adopt.
Second.
Canton.
Aye.
Kavanaugh.
Aye.
Stuckey.
Aye.
Porter.
Aye.
Bell.
Aye.
Berger.
Aye.
Ordinance passes. Next one.
Introduce and consider for adoption an ordinance transferring from the income tax fund $46,450 to the culvert fund, declaring an emergency, waive further readings.
Second.
Roll call.
Canton.
Aye.
Kavanaugh.
Aye.
Stuckey. Porter.
Aye.
Bell.
Aye.
Berger.
Aye, move to adopt.
Second.
Canton.
Aye.
Kavanaugh.
Aye.
Stuckey.
Aye.
Porter.
Aye.
Bell.
Aye.
Berger.
Aye,
All right, we're at the bills list, and we just received the third bills list. Chris, I
I've
don't
got
know if you
them,
can,
I've got
can you
them.
vote on all of them or any of
Yep,
them?
I'm good.
Okay.
Okay, so, motion to ratify the bills list of July 14th in the amount of $150,623.41. Bills list of July 31st in the amount of $34,516.99. And the bills list of August 14th in the amount of $94,191.53.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, all three pass. We are at new other.
Canton. Kavanaugh.
Very quickly, I just want to thank everyone that was so helpful to me on July 23rd in celebrating the 100th. I had a lot of extra work from Tim, from Thad, from Leslie, and I appreciate it very much. And from you, Danielle, thank you.
That all you have?
That's it.
Stuckey.
Nothing.
Porter.
Nothing.
Bell.
Nothing.
Berger.
Real quickly, I would like to be absent on September 11th from the council meeting, so that I can be on a cruise ship somewhere else. So I need the approval of council to be gone.
I move we approve that Rottenberger to be absent on September 11th, cruising in some sunny clime. Move.
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion passes.
Thank you
One
very
last
much.
comment. At your event on, during the rain, somebody fidgeting fell underneath the picnic tables and discovered that the picnic tables had been sanded and stained on both sides, the top and the bottom. And we're impressed with what went on.
Oh, my
All right, we need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved by Porter, seconded by Bell. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, we're out at 9:40.
If
he wants to survive a contract, he's not gonna
Is it, is it, is it our
Here when-
We have done work